Everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm calling this special meeting of the Historic Districts Review Board to order. We are January the 5th, 2021. This is our 13th virtual meeting. Our first for 2021, but our 13th virtual. Hopefully 2021 will be an improvement to 2020. I'm sure we here in Santa Fe are wishing that, as all over the world. Keep your fingers crossed. I would love to see all of you in person. Melissa, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Rios,
Here.
Vice Chair Katz,
Here.
Member Beachide,
Here.
Member Bienvenue,
Here.
Member Guida,
Here.
Member Larson,
Here.
Member Roybal.
Buddy, did you say here? Can you say here again? We didn't hear you. Oh, you're, okay.
Here.
Now I think you're good. Thank you.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any changes to this evening's agenda, staff or board members?
No changes from staff.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
And was there a second? Remember, when you make a motion, please indicate your name for the motion.
Frank moved to approve the agenda.
Buddy, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachide,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Yes.
Member Roybal.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. We have minutes of November the 24th, 2020, board members or staff. Are there any changes to these minutes? Anybody? Member Beachside?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just a couple of small changes on page 35. In the third paragraph, the sixth line reads, the fact that the yard wall, could you please replace the with a new yard wall?
Yes.
And on line 7, the and after portal should be on, the portal on the existing garage. And on line 8 reads, the original entry gets lost. And could you please insert the additions detract?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Guida?
I'm sorry, I thought I flagged some changes, but I found them. So on page 43, the second line from the bottom, instead of saying height is not scale, can we say height is not the same thing as scale?
Okay.
And then I have one more. Sorry, I don't. I can't find it.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Member Guida. Member Bienvenue?
Thank you, Chair Rios. On page 17, let's see, under the subheading vote, where the paragraph, the indented paragraph begins Member Bienvenue, before the period, add the words, but he does not understand that they are board direct. No, I take that back. Let me start that over. But in his understanding, they are not board directives.
Okay.
Was that it, Member Bienvenue?
That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? It appears no one else. Is there a motion to approve the amended minutes of November?
Member Bienvenue so moves.
Member Katz seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachide,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Abstain.
Member Royball.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Melissa. Under findings of fact and conclusions of law, we have 4. Are there any changes to any of these?
Madam Chair, if I may just note that we will update the approval date to the date of tonight's hearing on all drafts.
Thank you, Attorney Pius. Is there a motion to approve the findings and conclusions if there are no changes?
Member Bienvenu, so moved.
Rita seconds.
Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Abstain.
and Member Royball.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. Members from the public, is there anything matters from the public? We have Stephanie Beninato. Good evening, Stephanie,
Hello, how are you? Happy New Year to everybody.
and Happy New Year to you as well.
And hopefully things will be getting better in 2021. I just wanted to bring a couple of things. Well, I had a question on your approval of Catherine Street, the exception there, because my understanding in the past is that the law itself cannot be used as a hardship. And my understanding was in that situation, they were using the zoning requirement for the parking as the hardship to get a break room added on a second story. And I know that's come up before the board before, and that has not been considered a hardship. So I was surprised to see that as being used as a legitimate ground. And I really think that the board needs to look closely at these kinds of reasonings before they approve them. The other thing is I have brought to your attention a rock wall that was on West Houghton, and I didn't know the exact address, but I have reported it, I believe, to the city. It's 843 Allendale, and it runs down I think it's the south side of that property, and the whole thing is this stone wall that is seriously deteriorating. So it was the back or the west side of that wall that was kind of deteriorating, but now it's all along the entire length of the wall. It is a historic wall. It's really characteristic of that little alleyway there, and it's really going away. And it's these kinds of details and little features in our neighborhoods that I think we really have to work hard at preserving. So that I do hope the board will do something. And then I do have a couple of photos. I don't know if I can screen share them or not, but this is for 1129 Paseo de Peralta, which is right next to Connie's. And I happened to go look at that house. It's for sale. And what I noticed is the wall that is there by the driveway behind Connie's is still deteriorating. It's still cracked. It's exposed adobe. And I remember very distinctly that was a huge issue when that project came in front of this board, that the repair of that wall really needed to happen, et cetera, et cetera. And the owner just happened to show up, and she said that she wanted to leave it that way so that people would know it's adobe. I'm sorry, but I think there's other ways than allowing your wall to deteriorate to let people know that it's adobe. The same thing with the dental work on the house and the frame around the windows. She is letting them deteriorate intentionally because she likes the way it looks. And again, it is a contributing house. It's a really beautiful little house. And
Oh, we just lost you, Stephanie.
It was my user error. I'm sorry. I've been made the host and I don't have much practice. Sorry.
Okay,
Stephanie.
I'm back. So I don't know where I kind of got left off, but the dental work, the brickwork on this territorial facade, as well as the window the windows, the wood around on the windows is deteriorating, and she likes the look. And again, this to me is just intentional demolition by neglect. She did get a price for the interior renovation, at least that's what she told me. But she's not really taking care of the exterior, which is what we, the public, get to enjoy or not. So I'm just, again, bringing that to your attention. I have yet to file that in the computer system, but I will. But again, I just think that we need to care about these kinds of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff communications, do we have anything from staff? Nicole or anyone from staff?
No, Chair Rios, I have nothing to communicate.
And Sally, anything to communicate to us?
No, Cheerios, I don't have anything right now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go on to, we don't have anything under old business. We'll go on to new business. As you know, this evening we have 5 cases. And I do need to tell you that if you disagree with the decision that this board renders this evening, you can appeal to the city council. That would be done after the findings of fact and conclusions of law have been approved, and you have 15 days after that. I will ask you, Sally, if you can help me with the 2-minute limit on public comments, please. Is that okay?
Yes, Chair, I can do that for sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Sally. So we have the first case this evening is case 2020-00-2852. It's located at 119 Kearney Road. This is a historic status review case, and it's Angela's case. Would you let us know about this case, please? Angela, you have the floor.
Chair, members of the board, I present this case to you. This is 119 Kearney Road. It's a bi-level 1665 square foot single family residence designed in the Spanish Pueblo revival style, built in 1967 and 1968. Its front on the south elevation appears as a single story house with a portal, detailed with stucco columns, wooden corbels. My internet connection's unstable, so I hope this doesn't cut out. And exposed lintels. Its north elevation is 2 stories in height. This property is located approximately 1/2 block east of Bishop's Lodge Road. This is it. The yard wall and gate enclose the front yard. Like many homes on the street, it features a low cement stucco yard wall that contributes to the house's historical context and setting and is consistent with homes in this streetscape. A steep north sloping driveway runs along the east side of the house, and chain link fencing runs across the north and the east and the west side of the property. Windows, this is the flat. This is the floor plan. And these are more photos to orient you. This is the front and the west side. This is also the front and the west side, showing its extension in the back. This is the rear elevation, the north elevation. This is another of the rear elevation, grainy it's from the historic survey, just to show that these windows up here have lintels and are original. That's an example of those windows. This is the east side of the rear, or I'm sorry, the rear of the east side, and this is the southeast corner of the house. The windows are metal multi-light casement units on all the elevations, and windows on the front and south elevation are 2 sets of metal casements. One is a pair of 8 light units, and the other is a 12 light fixed picture window unit with 4 light casement side lights. There are 2 sets of 8 light fixed metal units on the west elevation. I'm going to go back up to the picture for your reference. The east elevation has an 8 light casement window unit. All windows have exposed lintels. The north elevation has a shed roof. There is a single 8 light casement and a 4 light casement on the upper level, which I showed you in that earlier photograph, which is the back of the house. Here's where those windows are. Okay. There is a roof, well, the north elevation has a shed roof, and there's a single 8 light casement and 4 light casement on the upper level. That's these, to repeat myself. There is a roofless deck on the upper level of the north elevation with a utilitarian wood railing. The applicant is before the board for a historic status determination. The historic cultural properties inventory notes that it would be eligible for designation in 2018 when it reached 50 years old. Little has changed on its southwest and east elevations. I'm going to go to my staff recommendation, and then I'm going to leave the screen with the facade diagram for your reference. Staff recommends that the house and the front yard wall be designated as contributing to the downtown and east side historic district. Am I still with you guys?
Yes, continue.
Okay, my screen flashed off. Staff recommends the south, facades 1 and 2. Let's see if we can do this. Facades 1, this is the portal, this is the front of the house, and 2 as
Angela,
primary.
we lost your screen share during the
Oh,
little internet blip, so we're not seeing the diagram.
okay, let me get back. Somehow I can get Zoom. I'm not seeing the toolbar for Zoom to share. Oh, let's see. Can you see it now?
No.
Angela, were you able to send the diagram out today or no?
No, I wasn't. It
Okay.
might help if we could do that right now, but maybe.
Well, what I think that you should read your recommendation and be explicit, and then, you know, possibly, I don't know what your screen looks like, but
Let's see if this is going to share with you all again. Is it back on?
there you go.
Yeah, you're back.
Oh, good. Okay. Back to the recommendation. Okay. I want to put it on the facade diagram, and then I'll read my recommendation.
Just lost it again.
You did?
Yep. Well, we have facade in our packet that we could look at, but
You should have it in your packet.
yeah, we
We
do.
do have it.
So I recommend that that the south, west, and east facades be designated primary for the contributing structure, but specifically excluding this portion of the northeast corner. And this is considered facade 5, and this is considered facade 6. So don't recommend primary. I'm sorry, 4 and 5. And then the west facade is 6, and it is recommended to be primary. Is that clear as mud? You go back to the house, maybe the diagram, the floor plan. Go to this. I can increase it. Are you able to see the footprint of the house?
Yes.
I think we got it.
This is the front. Okay, you got it? Okay.
Yep.
And I stand for questions. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, for your report. So in the exclusion of the northeast corner of facade 4 and 5, is that on the south elevation?
No, it's on the north
Okay,
elevation.
the north elevation is the rear elevation, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, thank you. And the elevations that you're recommending as primary, do they all contain the steel casement windows?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, board members? Member Beachside?
Thank you. Angela, I just wanted to clarify that when you recommend the front yard wall as contributing, is that all portions of the wall on the south, west, and east? I think
Yes, it is those portions of that wall.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I have a question and I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
Okay, Member Katz?
Are you including in the west primary facade the shed roof, a little addition on the back on the second, that's the second story?
No, excluding that portion of the west facade.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Katz, if you can see where it says raise hand, I don't know why you can't see that, or
I don't know why. I mean, I know where it normally is.
Yeah.
Today. I think they don't want me to talk. I will take the hint.
Frank, if you open your participants tab, it'll be down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I have and it isn't.
Thank you. Well, that's okay, Frank. I will call on you when you need to speak. Okay, so we will go on to the applicant. And can you tell us who the applicant is and get him sworn in?
The applicant is Craig Hoops.
And Mr. Hoops, can you hear us?
I'm currently promoting Mr. Hoops to the panel, which I probably should have done at the beginning of this hearing. My apologies. I think he's here now, perhaps.
Can you see me? Hello?
Yes.
Should we take down the PowerPoint so that we can see you better?
Stop sharing. I'm stopping sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hi, Craig.
Hi.
Can you hear?
The lighting is so bad in here, but
Oh, but we can hear you. That's the important thing.
you've seen my before, so.
Yeah, I'll have Melissa swear you in, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Craig Hoops, 333 Montezuma Avenue.
Thank you. Craig, you heard the recommendations of staff. You heard staff's report. Are you in agreement with those recommendations?
No, I'm not.
Okay, you have the floor. Would you tell us why or why not?
Yes. In 2006, when Mary Reagans filled out the inventory form, she listed this house as non-contributing. Furthermore, she said it was of low significance to the surrounding community. I think that those two things are very important to consider tonight as we look at this property. The house, while charming, and it's nice to have the steel windows and all of that, is not a significant example of Pueblo-style architecture in Santa Fe. And to change the status to contributing because it is old is not a good enough reason, in my book, just to change the status from non-contributing to contributing. There are many things that are inconsistent with what we would be required to do if we were to design an addition to this house. First is that the windows are in the same plane as the stucco. Angela, if you would go to slide number 12 and take a look at that. That's a slide showing the windows. It has, it very significantly shows that this house is not a house of mass, which is what Santa Fe style has always represented. Indeed, this window is, the glass is right there at the same plane as the stucco. If you look at the front portal, which if you go to, I believe it's, it's hard to see. The lintel that is there is only 4 inches wide. Again, it's not indicating mass. The walls on either side are built out of 2x4s. Again, not creating mass or a sense of Santa Fe style and what it's doing. So I think the significance to label the east, west, and south facades as primary facades, I think is wrong. What you can't see in this photo or any other of the photos is that the lower level on the west facade, there is a new door that is down there. It's all similar windows to what you see here on this north elevation. It has been monkeyed with in years past when there was a previous renovation done. So for those of you who don't know who Mary Reagans is, she was the head of H-Board staff back in the 1990s and I believe into the early 2000s. And for the head of the H-Board staff to label this as non-contributing and of low significance to the surrounding community, to me says an awful lot about how this house should be perceived. So based on that, I disagree with Angela's recommendations on what should happen to this house. We have not designed anything for this house yet in terms of anything, and we're very open to listening to what the board has to say. But I think to label those 3 facades as primary is not in the best interest of the community. When we, and if we do an addition to this house, we will be required to change the roof elevations of the addition in such a way that the single level of parapet that runs around this house will no longer be a single parapet that stays there. So it's, I think in some ways, any addition to this house is going to mess with its simplicity. So I just have an issue with all of that changing as we just go down the road with whatever we do. And for whatever reason, to call these primary, I think is not a valid argument.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hoops. Let me see if board members have questions for you or if Angela wishes to comment. Any questions for Mr. Hoops, board members, at this time? And Angela, did you want to comment in reference to what Mr. Hoops?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to. The applicant, Craig Hoops, refers to the HICP, the Historic Culture Inventory sheet in your packet. Yes, surveyed by Mary Reagans, and the notation is clear that it is recommended for status review once it turned 50 years old, which was 2018.
Correct.
And also in the HICP is a description of what little has changed. A lot of the historic fabric and the same details are still intact, other than the north rear addition. I believe that it is a house that is representative of its era, and it is falling within the time frame that these homes are now over 50 years old. And staff believes that this is a very solid example of the 1950s, 1960s architecture at that time. Staff also believes that this contributes to the historic streetscape for that reason. It has maintained its low yard walls and its simplicity. So those are my comments.
Oh, thank you very much for your comments, Angela. Board members, do you have any comments or questions for either Angela or Mr. Hoops at this time? Member Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to agree with Angela in just saying that I think this has a lot of character defining features intact, and I think we should strongly consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Member Guida.
Thank you, Chair. Angela, I noticed a change in the configuration of the front yard wall between the HICP and the current photos of the property. It seems that about a third of the yard wall has been moved over to allow parking in front of the bedroom of the house. And so I guess my comment to the board would be, you know, I mean, it's a small thing, but the integrity of the front yard wall is not really there for me.
Anthony, pardon me for interrupting you, but can you be a little bit more specific? Is it indicate exactly where that would be located? And is it a portion of the wall or is it the entire wall that you're indicating?
On page 4, which is from the Historic Cultural Properties Inventory, the original, what is presumed to be the original yard wall, is shown aligning with the east elevation. And in the current photos on page 8 in the individual packet, page 71 in the overall packet, that wall has been moved over more or less in line with the edge of the portal.
Thank you. Angela, can you comment in reference to that, in reference to the age of that wall supposedly being moved over?
Chair Rios and Member Guida, I'm not completely clear based on this photograph and the materials and the quality of the slides, which part exactly of the wall that's been moved. Can you describe that in elevations and
Or if we go to page
relation to the
4,
portal?
we go to page 4, or page 67 in the packet.
Okay, I don't have that up. The 60, I work from the paper.
I've
Maybe
got a,
somebody can bring that up or share that page.
I think I've got, it's page 4 of this individual report, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Page 4 of the HICP. Okay.
So
I've
you
got,
should see the HICP picture.
yes. Is it on that page?
Yeah, and we could see that the eastern portion of the yard wall is in line with the east facade of the house.
Okay.
And then, and we can go to another photo in the packet, or that I saw there was a Google Street
Photo
View.
that you just showed. Can you go to that one, please?
Yeah.
The colored photo. Would you go to that one?
I like lost it. I'm sorry. Lisa was much better at the Google Street View. I had it.
Well,
anyway.
practice makes perfect, Sally. So
I guess so, huh?
I can try. Let's see.
Part
Is my,
of it is I never know what you guys can see compared to what I'm looking at when I'm sharing. Still figuring that out.
yeah, we'll tell you. No, we cannot. Let's see.
is my PowerPoint still visible to you all?
No,
No,
we're looking at Sally's screen.
I did borrow it for.
Oh, color.
Okay.
Here it is.
Ta-da! All right, there's the Google
There you
Street
go.
View, yeah. Okay.
Yep, so the wall has been moved over.
So it's just that portion of the wall there in front.
Oh, I see now. Moved westward, the east wall.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's just that portion, but it's still a low wall, but it has been moved over. And do you know the age of, do you know when that was moved, Angela?
Unfortunately, we don't have any age on either the addition on the back or this move.
Okay, thank you.
Member Rios, Chair Rios.
Yes.
I think it would be safe to say, since there's a difference between the HCPI form that was done, I think in the late 90s, and what the wall configuration looks like now, that east side of the wall has changed in the last 20 years.
Okay.
So that section, I think you could probably say, is not native to the property, but that that front elevation and the one along the west side of the property look to be the same.
Yeah, thank you. Member Guida, did you have anything else?
No, nothing else.
And thank you for pointing that out. Minus field trips, the field trips play a very important role in us seeing the properties and making our decisions. So then when we have this in our packets, we really have to thoroughly look at everything in our packets so that we don't miss anything. And glad that we have members that are thoroughly looking at their packets and bringing things such as that wall to the attention of everyone else. Anyone else wishing to comment, any other board members wishing to comment or at this time? If not, I will open it to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular case? And I see Stephanie Beninato, she needs to get sworn in. And Stephanie, you have Stephanie and John Eddy. I see John Eddy as well. And you each have 2 minutes to make your statements. So if you can swear them in, Melissa.
Mr. Hanato and Mr. Eddy, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimonies you're about to give are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Eddy?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And I would like John Eddy to speak before me, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sure, that's fine. Did you take their addresses? I didn't hear you say addresses, so I don't know if you need to.
Yes, please, before you speak, state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Eddy. My address is 227 East Palace Avenue, Suite D, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87501. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. This is an interesting and classic example of things that we will be seeing more and more often now as these buildings age and come under the purview of the 50-year rule. And what we are dealt with is the difficulty of looking at a property that has it has integrity in that it represents the time in which it was built very clearly. Those steel windows that went into this building were rampant throughout Santa Fe in the late 50s and 60s, as I remember this. And they are, I'm offering an opinion here, but they're not a very aesthetically pleasing element in Santa Fe, and they're certainly not a practical or practically pleasing element for a homeowner, and many people have struggled mightily with these details. But the fact is that they represent the character of specific houses in neighborhoods that were built at this time. So that unfortunately puts a little bit more bearing on whether or not the status of this house should be changed, upgraded, downgraded, what have you. But I would appreciate you continuing to look at this carefully. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy, and Happy New Year to you. Ms. Beninato, you have the floor.
I'm waiting to unmute here. Oh, you can hear me. I'm sorry.
I can hear you, but please do state your name and address.
I'm sorry. I thought I was still muted. Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe 87504. I support the board's, I support your staff's recommendation for this building. I do believe that it is characteristic of the time period and of that neighborhood. And actually, I think the elevation drawings really show you how distinctive both the east and the west sides and the south side is. To me, the north side, although kind of an attempt at something different, Santa Fe vernacular, modern Santa Fe, whatever, it's too messy in a sense to, I think, be considered at all primary. But the other three facades, I think, are important. It leaves the back of the lot, which would be the most logical place for development to still occur. And I do think that the low wall, the parts that are historic, should also be preserved. And even though these windows are kinds of windows that we all can moan about, there are ways of dealing with them. And I, again, think that they are part of the character of these houses. And there they are. And I think the board and everybody who buys these houses needs to think about that they are historic at this point and how to make the best use of them, or the best, how to conserve them and make them as efficient as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Board members, if no one has anything further to say, I will entertain.
Could I say one other thing, Madam Chair?
Oh, absolutely, Mr. Hoops. Yes.
We are not fighting to throw away the windows that are there. We are fighting to be able to add on to the house as we feel is appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And if I might, Mr. Hoops, if I might interrupt you, when we are doing a status review,
correct,
we can't delve into what is going to happen in the future.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen,
right?
In the future, but,
so,
and I understand that, but we're not. Just for the record, we're not talking about changing windows and throwing out the steel case windows. That was not what we were coming forward with, and that's what Mr. Eddy and Ms. Beninato were focusing on. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think that they also indicated, or at least I heard Ms. Beninato say this is an indication of the time. This is the representation of the time period when this was built back in the 50s. So I will entertain a motion at this time. Member Beachside?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion. In case number 2020-002852 HDRB at 119 Kearney Road, I'd like to note for the record that I think the correct interpretation of the Hickby report is that an assessment of historical significance was based on its age at the time, which was less than 50 years. And based on the integrity of its historic features and its strong representation of its place in time, I would like to move that we follow staff's recommendation and designate the south, west, and east facades of the residence, facades numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6, excluding the north portions of facade 3, which is the roof deck, and the north portion of facade 6, which is the second story shed roof, and including the front yard wall, the portions that are historic, which excludes the east portion of that wall.
Thank you. Is there a second to this motion? Member Larson?
I'll second.
Thank you. Anything else? No one else has their hand up. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Member Beachside,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Yes.
Member Royball.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Hoops. And
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Next, we're going to move to case number 2, which is located at 1668 Cerro Gordo Road. This is Angela's case. This is a non-contributing guest house.
And may I ask who our applicant is so that I can make sure they're here and move them over?
Yes, it is Elizabeth Wagner.
Thank you. I've brought her into the panel. Thanks, Angela.
Okay, Angela, would you give us your report, please?
Yes, Chair. Let me pull up the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I will be sharing my screen now. Is this visible to everyone?
No.
No?
Yes.
Now it is. Yeah.
Now, yes.
Now it is,
Yes.
depending on our internet speeds. And I would like to note that as we're not having field trips, that these slides are taking the place of that. And it has also changed the dynamic of presenting these reports because we want to present the material to you as it tracks with our staff report. So sometimes there's some back and forth. I think this will only get better. Okay, for 1668 Cerro Gordo, it is a 796 square foot guest house, which is the casita. listed as non-contributing to the downtown and east side historic district. This is the casita circled. This is the rear house. South of the casita is the main house, which is out of public view. The casita fronts Cerro Gordo to the north. The casita blocks the main house, which is 2,800 square feet from view. The house and casita are Spanish Pueblo revival style. The casita is referred to as a cottage listed in the Historic Building Survey. The date built is unknown. The current owners converted it into a garage in 1970. It was later converted to a casita in 1976, during which was added a small kitchen, bedroom, bath, and entry portal to the west. New doors and windows were added. And the tags on the plumbing installed at that time reference the date 1972. This proposal is for the casita only at this time. The applicants plan to restore and remodel the main house in the future. For now, the applicant proposes the following exterior alterations to the casita. Replace windows. The applicant proposes to remove the existing north facade wall portion that bumps out and has 4 undivided light casement windows. In its place, a new wall will be constructed to be flush with the existing west facade. New windows will be true divided light casement windows. Other existing windows are metal sliding or do not meet egress code. The replacement windows will be true divided light casements, and all windows will be K-Cron white. The applicant proposes to replace the north entry door, which is the main entry, and the south elevation rear door. Exterior doors will be K-Cron white. The applicant proposes to reconfigure the casita's west facade front entry. The existing entrance drops significantly from the driveway. This is the driveway, Cerro Gordo's out here. This is the front entrance, and these are the steep steps that lead down to the entrance. Narrow and steep steps lead to the front door, and the applicant wishes to shift the front door facing north to face the west, so that the entry will no longer face the gravel parking area. The proposal is to enlarge the entry area by creating a brick landing and correct the rise and run of the exterior steps that would connect to a new brick path on the west side of the property, leading to the rest of the property and to the main house. The current front entry portal is approximately 25 square feet. It's a shed roof and it's very steep. It will be rebuilt to have a shallower pitch. The new pitch will be 2/12. A new standing seam metal roof, new decking, and columns will be added. The posts, beams, and decking will be Benjamin Moore's atrium white. The existing portal standing seam metal roof is dark red. The new portal roof will be Galvalume, which is a highly reflective silver spangled color that weathers in unique patterns over the life of the roof for a rustic appearance. As a note, Galvalume is the successor to the galvanized coating that's been around since the 1800s. On the casita's rear facade, we're going to go around the house. This is leading from the front door to the rear, to the side, the west side. This is the west side. And this is the rear south elevation. This is more of the rear south elevation. More. And that's the edge of the south elevation in the rear entry door. The applicant proposes to add an 8 square feet overhang The overhang will match that of the standing seam metal roof on the front of the house, also galvalume. The applicant proposes to re-roof the casita and relocate canales. The canales will be stained Cabot, semi-solid dark gray. I'm going to take you to some plans. And I apologize for the almost invisibility of the elevation labels. This is the north elevation. This is the proposed north elevation. This is the west elevation, and this is the proposed west elevation. This is the existing south elevation. And I don't see the proposed. The north elevation, I think that's mislabeled. No, that is the north elevation. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the staff report. The application proposes to construct new parapets to level the roof line. The building height varies from 10 feet to 8 feet 1 inch above grade on the north elevation. On the west elevation, it varies from 12 feet to 13 feet to 14 feet above grade. It varies 10 feet 10 inches to 11 feet 11 inches on the south elevation. And on the east elevation, it varies from 7 feet 8 inches to 10 inches above grade. New stucco will be cementitious El-ray buckskin. An existing skylight will be replaced and 2 skylights will be added. And they will not be visible from the public right-of-way. New exterior lighting on all exterior doors. The lights will be the Artesano's closed cell exterior sconces. Bola arriba, bola abajo. Staff recommends approval of the application as it complies with the general design standards for all H districts and the downtown and east side design standards. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Angela. Angela, is there tar paper draping over the parapet at this time in portions of this house? Such as there?
Here he is, yes, at the front. Yes, right there.
So obviously with the remodel, that all of that will be corrected, correct?
That's what the applicant proposes, is leveling out the roof line, and right. She can speak to that.
And also in reference to its location, when you're on Cerro Gordo, you're on the road way up here. So I'm going to guess that this house is, you primarily see the roof of the house because you're looking down. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
That is correct. That's the top of Cerro Gordo, and there's homes that are below the road grade, and this is one of those.
Could show the Google Street View if that would be helpful.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And board members, do you have any questions for Angela at this time? Member Katz.
I found the raised hand. I'm a little puzzled about the entry. The entry is staying on the north side, not going to the west side. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And
Member Katz.
How will you get to it? It's obviously below the level of the gravel area right in front of the house. Are there going to be steps down, or is it only coming from the west that you would get there? And what's going on in the front in that case?
Vice Chair Katz, the proposal is to move the front door from the north facade to the alcove's west side, so that it's facing west. And
no, it's not on the plan.
Should we pull these up again?
Stays on the north side. I'm looking at page 29 and 30, and you see that the entry on the proposed floor plan shows the entry on the north side, not the prominent north side, but the other north facade. And then you look on the
Chair Katz, I stand corrected. Yes, you are correct. The doors remain on that north facade. And there'll be, the main entry door is a single, and it will be replaced with French doors and side lights, a French door and side lights.
And so on the proposed north elevation, it shows a sort of a wall, and I can't tell whether they're getting rid of that wall or that's going to be what it's going to look like. And they're just showing us what that facade looks like, as though the wall and the infill wasn't, and the fill wasn't there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, Frank, I believe the north arrow on page 29, the plan is pointing in the wrong direction.
It is.
Thank you. Any other questions, Member Katz?
No, thank you.
Anyone else from the board wishing to comment at this time or may ask a question? If not, if we can have Elizabeth Wagner sworn in.
Ms. Wagner, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? Ms. Wagner?
Uh-oh.
Elizabeth, we can see you, but you appear to be muted on your end. Try to.
Mute.
There you
How's
are.
that?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, would you swear her in, please?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Elizabeth Wagner, 810 East Palace Avenue.
Thank you. Elizabeth, good evening and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. Good to see you.
Yeah, we haven't seen you in a long time.
I know.
Elizabeth, what do you have to tell us about this particular project?
The first thing I wanted to correct, which was already caught, is that the entry is to remain on the north elevation, not the west. There's a lot of grade changes on the interior, and there's no way we can access it to the west. So, and there's also a shed roof. If you look at the existing north elevation, there's a sloping shed roof. We propose to level that out to a correct parapet.
Okay, anything else that you want to tell us about?
The entry, if we could look at the proposed floor plan, we're trying to not enter from the parking lot. There's some really dangerous steep steps. So we're going to fill in that wall and enter down further to the west. We plan to excavate and put in retaining walls so that we have a nice 5 treads that are 6-inch risers and 18-inch treads. So it's a more gradual, safer entry to the new portal.
Thank you. My comments on this project is that the renovations to me appear to give this a nicer look, a cleaner look, a more cohesive look. And I'm just wondering what everybody else feels. If you have any questions for Ms. Wagner. Member Larson.
Yeah, I have the same thoughts as Chair Rios, and just that I think this is a very nice improvement to the building, and I think it actually adds a bit of character. So I think it's been very, very well thought through.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Bienvenue?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I agree completely that I think this is an improvement to the guest house. And with respect to your earlier question, even though it is much below the grade of the road, it's very visible from the road because you're looking across the parking area of that property. So it's an important property, I think, in the neighborhood, and I think this is a nice improvement to it.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members? If not, I will open it to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? I don't see that anyone from the public is let me see, Mr. Eddie. Mr. Eddie and Ms. Beninato, and they have both been sworn in. Mr. Eddie, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Ms. Beninato and I are kind of playing a game of chicken here as to who gets to go first.
Okay.
So I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, go right ahead.
First, allow me to, just a personal note, to say Happy New Year to the applicant.
Oh, John Eddie.
Thank you. Hi, Elizabeth. Good to hear your voice. I agree that this is a tremendous improvement on this building. The punched out window wall on the north facade is, I'm very happy to see that go away and be restored back to divided light array there. I think that's a really big plus. I also think that shallowing out the pitch of the portal roof that's visible from that elevation is a big plus as well. I was a little confused over the talk of leveling out the parapets. That does not mean that the prominence of the chimney will go away, I'm assuming, correct? Could I get some clarification on what that means, leveling out the parapets?
Elizabeth, would you respond?
Yes. What was once a garage with the chimney, that's going to remain the same height. As it steps back where the bedroom was added, right now it's a shed roof. It slopes down to the west. And we'd like to level that out into a proper parapet. I think you can tell on the proposed north, the existing north and proposed north elevations.
Madam Chair, may I continue just a little?
Yes, absolutely.
I was wondering how the board feels about the gabaloon metal on these roofs. This is certainly a matter of personal preference. I like the standing seam. I think standing seam is what has been in that neighborhood on that house for a while, and I just would like to see what the board feels about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to have a question in reference to that. And since you brought it up, I'll ask right now, and then I'll give you the floor, Stephanie.
Okay.
Elizabeth, did I understand Angela to say that the galvalume initially starts very prominent, very bright? Is that correct?
I have a sample of it. I actually have a metal sample I can submit. To me, it's dull, and it dulls more over time. And I might add that I've been putting standing seam metal roofs in galvalume on the east side of Santa Fe for 30 years. And they dull out beautifully.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I think that I would be reluctant to see something very alarming.
No, it's not shiny.
Okay. Thank you. Stephanie Beninato.
Yeah, I just also want to echo what everyone else has seemingly said about the improvement to this building. And I want to say hello to Will Potts-Gorham, the owner, through his representative. And I too just had questions about the roof, and also just about how that change in the front door was working. So I appreciate all that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's no one else from the public wishing to comment, so I will entertain a motion at this time. Member Katz. And you are muted. Frank, we can't hear you. Okay, now we can hear you. Go right ahead.
In case 2020-002864 HDRB, at 1668 Cerro Gordo Road. I would move to approve the application as recommended by staff and share my view that I also think that it's an improvement on the building, quite an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Roybal?
I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, Member Beachside,
Yes.
Member Bienvenue,
Yes.
Member Guida,
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz,
Yes.
Member Larson,
Yes.
Member Roybal.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion has been approved.
Thank you very much and good luck on your project, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Next case is Daniel's case. This is case 2020-002853 located at 675 Alto Street. This is non-contributing and Daniel, may we hear your report, please?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
Daniel, could you please let us know who the applicant is so I can move them over?
John Utton.
Thanks. John should be rejoining as a panelist.
Okay,
Will I try to share my screen?
please.
A brief note, the memo that is in the packet has been slightly altered. There are a couple of extra items, but the plans are the same plans. I'll let you know when I get to those items.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
So 675 Alto Street includes a residential building listed as non-contributing to the West Side Guadalupe Historic District and new construction of a detached studio and guest house. The studio and guest house were approved by the Historic Districts Review Board on January 8th, 2019 in case H19002. So this is the site. There's an upper and lower Alto Street. Oh, I apologize. The location is not quite correct of my rectangle. It's located down here on the lower Alto, the so-called dirt Alto along the river. This is the north view of the property. In the background, you can see the existing main house, and these are the two new constructions. This one is the one that's in process. They're constructed of adobe brick and are still under construction. There is also a yard wall that's located here in the front on the north side of the property. Now, here are a couple of views. This is from the east and from the west. You can see in the background that same adobe structure that's under construction. Now, the applicant proposes the following exterior alterations. Item 1 is to replace and relocate the existing non-historic northern yard wall. That's this yard wall. This is the existing plan above and below a proposed plan. The wall will be moved 6 feet to the north and will be be built to a height of 5 feet, which is the maximum allowable height. 3 openings, approximately 1 foot 6 inches in height, with arch tops will extend above this height to approximately 6 feet. Here you can see the proposed openings, and they will look something like this. This is an element that is frequently found in the historic district and conforms to the district standards. The wall will be constructed from adobe and covered with cementitious stucco, colored either El Rey Desert Rose or adobe. Decorative doors in the wall openings will be constructed of wood and will use colored Sherwin-Williams Nifty Turquoise is the name of the color. Here again, the side view, you'll see that the wall will protrude somewhat from in front of the structure with one of these openings. Items 2 and 3 are grouped together. Item 2 is raising the roof, and item 3 is raising the parapet. So item 2 is to raise the height of the studio from the proposed height of 10 feet 6 inches to 12 feet on the north side and 13 feet on the south. The maximum allowable height is 14 feet 2 inches. Again, you can see the raised roof. Item 3 is to step the parapet and raise the parapet height by approximately 18 inches. Here's the flat parapet, and here you can see that it's been raised. Here again, the raising of the parapet. Item 4, add exterior door and awning on the north side. Here you can see there's no door, and they're going to add a door. And adjacent to it, item 5, modify the dimensions of the north window and make it taller and narrower. Oops. Item 6 is to relocate a canale that is, at the moment located here. And it's going to move to that point where the wall steps. Those are the, for clarity, items 3 through 6 were not included in the packet. Those are the additional items seeking approval. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with section 14-5.2 D and I.
Thank you, Daniel, for your report, and it was very clear to me what, when you're talking and you're showing what is being proposed. Thank you. Board members, any questions for Daniel at this time? Let me see. I don't see any hands that are being raised. Yes, Member Benvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Daniel, I was just wondering, you said that the maximum allowable height for the wall is 5 feet, and where is that found? I can't remember, or couldn't find it.
Where is it found? It's under item number 1.
No, I mean, where is the maximum allowable height found in the ordinance?
It's this wall here.
I understand, but where, how did you calculate, how did you determine that the maximum allowable height is 5 feet?
That's done by a calculation looking at the average heights of the street, the walls along the street.
Okay, so so did staff do that calculation for this project?
One of our staff is responsible for doing that calculation.
Okay. And then the arch top is 6 feet high, and you said that's also conforms to district standards. And I know you're right that that's very common. You see it all over. I was just wondering, is that also a calculation that was done by staff to make sure it was 6 feet was appropriate or allowable?
Member Bienvenue and Daniel, if you don't mind, I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
So the wall height is calculated as an average, and then things like arches are a detail, an architectural detail, and so they're not like a creation of an overall height issue. So as a detail, it's allowed to be a little bit higher, and that's part of the wall and fence guidelines. And we can ensure that those get placed in the packet next time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, board members? So Daniel, so the existing wall is going to be lower, correct?
I believe so. There's a little bit of a slant you can see here. So yes, it will be lower, partly due to the slant of the streetscape.
Thank you, Daniel. I will open it to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular case?
I'm curious, did you want to hear from Mr. Utton first?
Oh, I sure do. Gee, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm so sorry. Will you please swear in the applicant? My apologies to you, sir. We do want to hear from you.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. My name is John. I live at 675 Alto Street. I'm wondering if we could also add Devendra Contractor to the meeting. He should be on the attendee list, and he's the architect. But
That's DNCA.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Mr. Contractor should be coming on over, and we'll need to swear him in too.
Okay, let me know, Sally, when he's over.
Here, he appears to be unmuted and visible and ready to go.
Okay, so Melissa, would you swear in the architect as well? Or contractor? State your name and tell us who you are.
I'm Devendra. You swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Devendra Contractor, 924 Shoefly Street, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay, and what was your name again?
Devendra.
Okay, I'll just call you sir because I'll probably mispronounce it. Okay, which one of you wants to comment first on this project?
Chair Rios, I'll give a short comment. First, I'd like to start by thanking the board for scheduling this special meeting after our December meeting didn't happen. So, you know, everybody's time is valuable, especially in the evening. So we appreciate both the board and the staff doing that and wish you happy 2021. Just by coincidence, it was 2 years ago that we appeared in front of you. I think it was on December 8th, 2019 on the same project. And the board came and did a site visit on the snow. We had like about 8 inches of snow and we had some story poles up. My 15-year-old son and I, James, have been laying all the adobes and putting up the vigas and the latias. We're obviously not very fast because it's a 330 square foot art studio we're trying to complete. We did complete the little casita, but we've been a little slow. But we're hoping to get it done by the end of the spring. But we've been enjoying the work. It's been therapy for us from some of his school Zoom meetings and some of my Zoom meetings. And we've been getting out there and slinging some mud and really enjoying it. One thing that we've noticed as we've been doing it is that concrete wall seems to be a little tall and it kind of crowds the structures. There was one photo that Daniel showed, and I think his staff report was very good and very accurate, and appreciate that. But you can see in that, and I don't know if you can show it, but the west photo shows really the wall at its tallest point. There we go. So I've measured it right there at that, Chair Rios, you were asking about the height of the wall. You can see above where currently there's some gravel that is part of a drainage catchment. Yeah, right there, the highest point of the wall right there at the corner of the casita is about 7'2". And then at the far end, it is currently about 6 feet, slightly more than 6 feet. So our proposal is to get rid of that concrete, what was a retaining wall, and put in a adobe wall that would fit more with the structures we've just built. We've just spent a lot of time, putting in adobe and trying to have a more organic look. And that wall, I should have thought of this earlier, but as you go forward with these projects, you start to notice things. And so we would like to replace that with an adobe wall that's more decorative and less uniform, like that wall, the current wall is, and would fit more in with the structures and actually would reveal them a little better, and in particular not crowd the casita so much on that corner where the wall goes right up against it. And then I guess the second big item is the height. We've realized that we really made a mistake in previously only asking for 10 feet 5. I don't know what we were thinking really, but as we've been doing it, we realized we need a little more height to complete the building. And it will still be lower than the casita at the height that the board approved 2 years ago and has now been completed. And I think that those are the two major items. I think Daniel did a very good job of covering the other items. So Vendra or I would be happy to answer any questions or give any further information. We appreciate your review of this change.
Okay, thank you. General Contractor, did you want to say anything?
I'm contractor's my last name, but I don't have anything to add beyond just telling, you know, I want to just say what a pleasure it is working with Mr. Utton, because he's doing something that's been done in the vernacular tradition in New Mexico and elsewhere, building this himself, building it in Adobe, and celebrating the organic qualities of the material.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that as he was indicating, he and his son are working on this. I applaud you as well, Mr. Utton. Thank you for that. And it's proving to be kind of an exciting project, it sounds like, from your comments for you and your son. And I do think that the proposed wall is better, in my opinion, than the existing wall. It has a lot more character, and it varies, and then it's got the little openings. I think that, and it reveals the house better. So let's see what other board members have to say. Member Larson?
Thank you. I just have a minor question relating to some of the paint finishes on the wood elements. I noticed that on some other sections of the house, it has a very nice weathered finish to it, which I think is really unique. And I don't know if it's a natural choice or natural occurrence, or if that was a aesthetic choice, but I was wondering if you plan on doing that with the newer painted blue or turquoise sections, just because I think it's a very like nice soft kind of touch, and it fits in with that kind of vernacular look.
Member Larson, thank you for that question. All the lintels are old wood that we found, and we've stained them with kind of a natural stain with a gray tint to it to try to enhance what you're mentioning. And that also applies to this art studio. So the one item that we're seeking to paint, the nifty turquoise, which is kind of a green turquoise, is the awning over the door. And it would match the three awnings. I don't know if we could again look at that west photograph, Daniel, but the let's see. Oh, there we go. There's those two awnings. You can't really see it very well, but they are painted nifty turquoise, but all the rest of it. So those lintels, the color of the metal casement on the exterior of the windows is that similar gray. So it's really just that one awning over the new small 2-foot door that we're requesting that would, and it's similar to the color in that photo that we just saw a second ago. So right there where Daniel's indicating is really the only thing that would be painted that turquoise.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members? It appears not, so I will now go to public comment and see if anybody has their hand raised. Yes, it's Stephanie Beninato.
Hello, Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe 87504. I think that the wall is really beautiful and that it does fit in quite nicely. And it's really great to see that this is an artisan project, a familial artisan project in Santa Fe. And again, it also is facing the river. It is visible from Alameda on both sides of the river, but it would, I think, fit in very nicely with that, with what's there. So I think the board will approve it, and I hope they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. John Eddie, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to echo what Ms. Beninato has said, and I think the addition of this wall and the bumped up apertures with the vernacular woodworking in them are really great, really nice to see. And not to soapbox, but we don't see this enough in Santa Fe anymore. So I really applaud the architect and the builders for taking this approach. And I urge you to grant this request. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So I will entertain a motion at this time. Member Bienvenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will move in case number 2020 002853 675 Alto Street, that the application be approved as submitted and as consistent with staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Member Larson?
I will second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
Member Roybal?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And thank you both for your presentations, and good luck on your project.
Thank you. Thank the board and thank you, staff. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next case is Angela's case. It's a vacant lot, so it's a new proposal. It's located at 855A Camino Ranchitos. And Angela, you have the floor to give us your report.
And may I ask Angela, is this Stephen Bailey?
Ellie?
Let me move him over to the panel. Is there anyone else we need to do here? Got him. Okay, thank you.
Are you able to see my screen? everyone?
Yes, we are seeing your recommendation, and then we're also seeing some small.
Okay.
Oh, yes, here we go.
Okay, take it away. 855A Camino Ranchitos is a vacant lot located in the downtown and East Side Historic District. The applicant, I want to show you the site. I'm going to give you a tour of the site in photographs. This is the front of the lot along Camino Ranchitos, which is facing west. This is the lot facing, it's from the view from the southwest towards the northeast. This is more of the lot to indicate its sloping nature. And you'll, as you've noticed, there's story poles there. There's more story poles, but the lot slopes significantly from the front, the street up here, down to the rear of the property on the east side. And there's a side view of the property where the slope is very apparent. The applicant proposes to construct a 4,604 square feet single-family residence that includes a garage, workshop, storage room, mechanical coverage, and portales. The design is recent Santa Fe style, with a variety of rectangular masses to break up the size and the heights of the home. The house will have a flat roof. Most of the masses have parapets, and some have roofs that extend out as minor overhangs to balance the horizontal and vertical lines of the exterior. The latter roofs will have a steel fascia at their edges. The Fascia's portal posts and canales will be darkened, distressed finished. The stucco drive-it sand pebble in color pecos will have 3 1/4-inch bullnose radii on the corners. The proposed height is 15 feet 2 inches, which is under the maximum allowable height for the streetscape, which is 17 feet 5 inches. The lot slopes at least 16 feet from the southwestern corner down to the northwest corner. The applicant is not requesting additional height or slope. The applicant has sited the house to conform to its contours. The siding allows for guest parking in the southwestern corner and a garden and retention pond in the northeast. The house's entry on the west facade includes a gate and wall around a courtyard. The back of the proposed house contains more contemporary aspects of the structure with larger areas of glass, corner windows, which are not publicly visible. The windows will be a combination of awning, casement, picture, and door. Detail is found in the packet's window and bid schedule. Garage door will be horizontal wood slats, approximately 4 inches tall, applied to the door. Doors are solid horizontal wood grain with 9-inch wide steel panel and 2 inches tall horizontal strips applied to the wood door. Skylights will be a combination of glass, lean-to, and against a parapet, and solitubes. All are below parapet heights and are not publicly visible. Exterior lights are recessed cans and overhangs, step lights in the bench at the entry portal, LED strip lights at the edges of the walkway flooring and underneath the entry gate portal, and sconces at the entry and guest portales. This is the color palette, which is in your packet. These are the sconces. They're the exterior lighting fixtures. Staff recommends approval of the proposed project as it complies with the general design standards and the downtown and east side standards for recent Santa Fe style. I've concluded my report.
Thank you, Angela. Angela, the yellow cover sheet, I assume has an error on it because it's indicating that they propose to construct a 20-foot, 8-inch high residential structure. And you indicated that it's only going to go up to 15 feet 2 inches. Is that correct?
Correct. What I've read into the record is the correct proposal.
Okay. Also, this house has a lot of contemporary or modernistic elements. You agree with that, correct?
I agree.
And the edges on this are sharp as opposed to rounded to go with the contemporary look that they are proposing?
Chair Rios, the edges are not 90 degrees, but they are sharper than other structures found in the historic districts that are characteristic of the historic districts. The applicant has specified that they will be bullnosed to some degree, and he can speak more to that when the applicant is present.
And the lights, are they not going to be divided, or are the lights that are not seen not being divided?
None of the windows that are publicly visible are, let me rephrase that. None of the visible windows are greater than the standards allow for, and the windows that are not publicly visible.
Okay, and talking about public visibility, would you describe the visibility of this project?
Chair Rios, I'd be happy to. I'm sure the applicant can speak to this because he's familiar with the site. The visibility, public visibility is from the street, the Camino Ranchitos side, and to some degree, the south elevation. The east and the north elevations are not publicly visible.
Okay. So what of this project will we be able to see from a public way?
I'm going to take I'm going to go back to the slide. It shows it's in context, even though actually it's kind of not in context, it's floating, but this is the front of the house. This garage door faces south and this faces west. And this is the publicly visible portions of the house. This is a portion that will be publicly visible. Is that, if that's correct, the applicant can correct me. And then this is not publicly visible, the rear elevation.
Okay, so you're telling us that just the top portions of this house are going to be visible from a public way?
Yes.
Okay. And okay, and I'm going to guess that all the skylights that are being proposed will be low profile?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me see if other board members have questions for you, Angela. Any questions for Angela at this time, board members? Member Beachside?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I have a couple of questions. I understand you've found that it complies with all the requirements. I just want to confirm. I don't see in the first paragraph of the report refers to some roofs that extend out as minor overhangs to balance the horizontal and vertical lines of the exterior. Are those? I don't see where those are, but I assume they're less than 30 inches. Is that correct?
Member Beachside, that yes. This okay. Oh, to the applicant. Yeah, you answer it.
No, I just see him nodding. I was asking you.
No, well, he hasn't been sworn in, so.
No, right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there seems to be, I think on the east elevation, the elevation drawing that you showed shows a wall that extends. But I'm not sure what the purpose of that wall is, but I just want to, I'm not sure how that conforms to our ordinance. Maybe it's not visible.
Member Beachside, that's a retaining wall.
No, it was, it's the color renderings. It's this wall that's on the far left of that.
The second color rendering.
That's attached to the house itself. Yeah, that shows it. Well, no, sorry, the east I think is where it's. There, that wall on the far left of the structure appears to be connected to the house, and I don't know how to interpret that in relation to the code.
Member Beachside, that is a retaining wall for the site, and the standards for height, I believe, are not.
Angela and Member Beachside, I can speak to that a little bit, but Mr. Belli can probably describe its intent. It is part of the house, so it's not technically like a wall, like it's attached enough to the house. It's more of a wall structure, and as long as it doesn't exceed the height of the maximum allowable height, that's kind of how it's viewed. If it was separate, then it would be required to match the streetscape standard for the wall height.
Okay.
So
helpful. And then I just had one other question I noticed in that, I didn't see it in the staff report, but in the applicant's letter, there's a reference to a covered walkway, I think in the back, that's covered with something called polygal. Could you just point out where on the drawings we can see that?
Yes. Rear.
It's described as the walkway space between the great room and the east portal.
Member Beachhead, I'm going to defer to the applicant on that question.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Member Benvenue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just following up on your questions and Angela's responses. I'm just trying to square the acknowledgement that this is a contemporary design with the recommendation that it conforms to the design standards. It's pretty clearly it's a fine exemplar of what might be called Southwest contemporary or Southwest modern or something along those lines. But the problem is we have an ordinance that only has two styles in this district, old Santa Fe and recent Santa Fe. And recent Santa Fe, of course, doesn't mean recent as of 2021, but recent as of 1957 when the ordinance was passed. And more particularly, it requires that recent Santa Fe style not only be in harmony with old Santa Fe style, and it's just a development of it to modernize some of its features, but specifically, the dominating effect is still to be of Adobe construction, even if it's not made of Adobe. Well, so this contemporary style is pretty clearly, it's very prevalent in many parts of Santa Fe, and there's a lot to be said for it. It can be quite beautiful, and this is a nice example of it. But it certainly doesn't appear to be of Adobe construction, and it has all the hallmarks of modernist design, including the squared off corners and the horizontal lines and the cantilevers, the metal, the steel, the glass expanses, and so forth. So I just don't see how we get to recent Santa Fe style with this. And I'm wondering if you can address that.
Member Bienvenue, thanks for the opportunity to address that. All of it by the book meets the design standards for the downtown and East Side Historic District with respect to wall domination, Adobe, appearing as a mass of Adobe. It does not have any undivided lights in publicly visible areas to meet that standard. It's within the allowable height, and that explains my recommendation for approval, or that it complies to those standards.
May I comment quickly too?
Thank you.
So we've seen houses similar to this, and the kind of crisp edges have been described more as a territorial type of architectural design element. And the windows do comply with the 30-inch light rule and the publicly visible spots. The color is acceptable in this district. And I didn't see the cantilevers, but that would be a violation of the code if there were cantilevers in the design, but I didn't notice them specifically. So
we can ask the applicant when he sworn in.
And if I may add to that, Nicole, the section in the code that refers to cantilevers has to do with the length of the cantilevers. Cannot be more than, I forget what it is offhand, but I can look for it.
30 inches. Yeah, 3 feet. You're correct, 3 feet.
So cantilevers aren't categorically excluded, to my understanding in recent Santa Fe style. But I think the applicant can and should verify that, confirm that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure the applicant is going to have a lot to tell us. Member Katz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the same problem that John has, and that I just, it's a lovely building, and I love modernist architecture, but that's not Santa Fe style. And the recent Santa Fe style says the effect is to be of adobe construction. Now, the effect of this building is of poured concrete construction that, if left raw, would be just fabulous for a modernist house. But of course, you can't do that, so they put stucco on it. And I don't think that that changes the sense that this is not, it doesn't have the effect of being adobe construction, pure and simple. The sharp corners, I know that we've approved houses on that. I think that was a mistake, and I don't think we should continue that mistake. It doesn't look like adobe construction. I believe the recent Santa Fe style in subsection C says no cantilevers. And so I just, I have real trouble with this house for that reason. I mean, it's so hard. And I think it's, what are we trying to preserve? And we're trying to preserve a style of adobe architecture. And I don't see that this does that at all. It's not a style that's inconsistent. I mean, you think of a brick house, an old red brick house, or a colonial house, or those, you know, that would slap you in the face, right? Because it would be so obviously not in the Santa Fe style. But just sort of tarting this up with the stucco finish and what they've done does not disguise the fact that this is not an adobe style house.
Thank you, Member Katz. Member Guida.
Thank you, Chair Rios. I'll respectfully but forcefully disagree with Member Benvenu and Member Katz on this point. You know, to my knowledge, the only adobe construction project that I've reviewed in the last 2 years has been the case just before this, which was exciting not only because it was a true adobe building, but also exciting because it was adventurous architecture. You know, I don't know that we every day see very many teardrop-shaped buildings, but we certainly approved that one and applauded that owner for doing the work, not only because of its construction method, which was authentic, but also because of good design. This is a really well-designed project. I don't agree that there's something about it that makes it not recent Santa Fe style. Recent Santa Fe style is not pegged to a year. It is pegged to aspects of traditional construction in Santa Fe that have been updated over the years. I see before me a building that is like every other project that we look at. It's made out of wood studs and stucco, and we somehow pretend that it looks like adobe or somehow resembles it. I think where it does complement Santa Fe style is that we have a wall-dominated structure. Windows are set in and set back from the corners. We have a room-based massing that follows a lot of the Santa Fe architecture that we approve week in and week out on this board. There are no cantilevers here. I think we'll hear that from the applicant. All the roofs are supported by posts. You know, and in the packet, there are plenty of examples of other houses in the neighborhood that are done in recent Santa Fe style that are more sharp-edged than what is proposed here. So I would encourage the board to be really open-minded for both what we've approved before and what's being presented to us tonight. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Member Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to take a second to point out that compared to a lot of the other photos in the packet where we see a lot of comparisons and other examples of recent Santa Fe style, I think that this design actually approaches that category of recent Santa Fe quite well, mainly in the massing. I think there's a really thoughtful use of stepped massing, which does, again, call to a lot of our building traditions. There's a distinctive effort, I think, to work with that style and use it to enhance the design. And I don't think that this has been done without a effort to blend with the district or to add to the district. So I think that this has been approached well. I think that we have plenty other examples of other eras approaching this style. And I think, like Frank said, you know, this is a 2021 house, but it is still interpreting our recent style and our use or continued use of that style too. So I think that maybe we could add some different elements to tie it more closely with tradition here, but I think also we may be fighting the beauty of this contemporary design or contemporary interpretation of our traditional style here. And I think that, again, this is a really not unreasonable approach in the district. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Roybal.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony. I think this is a well-designed house. Maybe if we could round the corners just a little bit, it would definitely help with the design, but I have no problem with all the design aspects of this. I mean, it's a very attractive home and I think it fit well in the area. And again, the only problem I would have is if we could round off the corners, maybe a little bit to help with the design. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members wishing to comment or ask a question at this time? Member Beachside.
Thank you. I just wonder, I don't know where we should do this, but I wonder if it would be possible to see the Google Street Map of this location, just to see what's around the proposed building site.
Thank you. Are you getting that for us, Sally? She is.
Excellent.
In the meantime, Angela, would you read the definition of recent Santa Fe style?
Chair Rios, members of the board. Yes. Recent Santa Fe style. Recent Santa Fe style intends to achieve harmony with historic buildings by retention of a similarity of materials, color, proportion, and general detail. The dominating effect is to be that of adobe construction, described as follows. No building, I don't know if you want me to read all of these, but I think it might be useful for this discussion.
Yeah, please do.
A, no building shall be over 2 stories in height in any facade unless the facade shall include projecting or recessed portales, setbacks, or other design elements. The combined door and window area in any publicly visible facade shall not exceed 40% of the total area of the facade, except for doors or windows located under a portal. No door or window in a publicly visible facade shall be located nearer than 3 feet from the corner of the facade. C, no cantilevers shall be permitted except over projecting vigas, beams, or wood corbels, or as part of the roof treatment described below. D, no less than 80% of the surface area of any publicly visible facade shall be adobe finish or stucco simulating adobe finish. The balance of the publicly visible facade, except as above, may be of natural stone, wood, brick, tile, terracotta, or other material, subject to approval as hereinafter provided for building permits. E, the publicly visible facade of any building and of any adjoining walls shall, except as otherwise provided, be of one color, which color shall simulate a light earth or dark earth color, matte or dull finish, and of relatively smooth texture. Facade surfaces under portales may be of contrasting or complementary colors. Windows, doors, and portals on publicly visible portions of the building and walls shall be of one of the old Santa Fe styles, except that buildings with portals may have larger plate glass areas for windows under portals only. Deep window recesses are characteristic, and flat roofs, and F, flat roofs shall have not more than 30 inches overhang. That's it.
I don't know if you see me kind of driving around in the road here. That's giving you the sense of what you wanted to see in this streetscape here. As you can tell, there's a lot of vegetation on Camino Ranchito, so a lot of these are pretty well hard to see, but.
Yeah, because they have a lot, there's a lot of high walls on Camino Ranchitos.
And this part has a lot of like big mature pinon and I don't know if this is helpful. I'm like worried I'm gonna make people car sick, but.
Can you travel down the road some, or you try?
Yeah, I've been traveling around. Now we're back at about 8:54, so we're like headed right back over to, let's see, it's 8. I think that's where we are. We're at 8:58 now.
Oh, you're okay. If I may, sorry.
Yeah.
I think okay. So no, go back to where you just were. That is the site to the left, to the right. Back up further on the street. No, the other side. Further up, or come back on the streets more. Well, you saw that lot for sale sign? That's the lot. It's that, there it is. There it is, that's the lot where this house is proposed.
Oh, that was recycling.
Yeah, nowhere near it.
Sorry.
That's not near it either.
Yeah, I think Angela, you would do better at this. So
well,
in the future
if I could
I can do better though. I don't know. We're right in the vicinity, and you can at least see the styles, which I think was Member Bichay's objective, was to kind of get a sense of what these other houses in the area look like. So
yes, thank you. Thanks, Sally.
Sure.
So this house, this lot, from what we were seeing right there, it's headed more to the south, correct? Angela, from
like El Caminito, it's
from the house we were just seeing on Camino Ranchitos.
Right, it heads into Camino Rancheros, and it's closer to that intersection than it is.
Yeah, it's closer to the intersection, but it doesn't cross the Garcia, right? It's on this side of Garcia. Yeah, okay. All righty.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, let me see. Member Guida has something to say.
Thank you, Cheerios. I noticed just, and I'm sorry to keep us from getting to the discussion with the applicant, but I noticed there were some comments too about the size of this project for the neighborhood. Angela, from the aerial photograph, it seems to me that there are other big houses on the street and perhaps ones that are bigger. Is that correct? Is she frozen?
Angela, did you hear the question?
I lost contact. I'm now back on. I did not. I heard the first part of the question.
Question. Go ahead, Anthony.
Sure. The question was that, I see there's some comments from neighbors about the size of the proposed project, but is it true that there are other houses on the street that are just as big or bigger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. If we can swear in the applicant. Melissa?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Belly, 449 Camino Don Miguel, Santa Fe.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Belli, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about this project? And as you're telling us about this project, I had Angela read the definition of recent Santa Fe style. Would you indicate to us what you feel this project has in common with recent Santa Fe style?
Yes, absolutely. And the other questions that were asked, I made notes as we went along so I can try to hit those. But before we do that, Attorney Paez, can you add Mark Botwin as a panelist? Mark and Christina are the clients, the owners, and I'd love for them to be panelists so they can speak up if they would like to. Okay, great, thank you. And usually I just make myself available for questions, and I know y'all have had several that I've got notes about here. But because staff received the 13-page letter from the neighbors to the north, along with some quotes from 3 other neighbors in that letter, I'd like to give comment to all of the things that the neighbors addressed, if that's all right. My initial response was simply to defend the design, but when the Zoom glitch happened and the hearing was postponed, it gave my clients and me a chance to step back and reflect. And so we'd like to offer some possible changes to the design to help address the neighbors' concerns and make it a win-win, because we like the changes that we're going to propose, if we may. Before I go into the answering your specific questions and then some notes that I prepared about the neighbors' comments, Mark and Christina have written a letter that they distributed to several of the neighbors a week or so ago. And if possible, I'd like to ask them to read that, and then I can offer answers to questions and go through my notes, if that's all right.
Okay, well, the Botwins will have to get sworn in, Mark and Christina. Melissa, can you swear them in, please? And are they in the panel section?
Yes. Mr. Botwin is here and he appears to be unmuted now, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mark Botwin, 369 Montezuma Avenue, P.O. Box number 208, Santa Fe.
Thank you. And you, Mr. Belli, said that Mr. Botwin is going to read a letter. Is that what you want him to do?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes,
For
this was
comment.
a letter that we wrote to our neighbors after receiving the letter that you all received.
Okay, Mr. Botwin, excuse me for interrupting you, but Angela, would you summarize what the neighbors wrote? Would you let us know what the neighbors said?
Chair Rios, I was made aware of that letter last year. Well, I was, no.
Last year wasn't that long ago.
In terms of this hearing, and rather than paraphrase, I believe that I would like to defer that to the applicant. I can summarize by saying there are concerns such that have been raised by members of this board, and there are also statements of support for this project. And I think that the neighbors' statement reads for itself, and it's several pages.
Okay, so Angela, you're telling us there's some of the neighbors are in support of the project and some are against the project. Is that what I'm understanding you to say?
If we have to cast it in black and white terms, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Botwin, you have the floor in addressing your neighbor's comments.
Thank you, Ms. Rios. Dear neighbors, Happy New Year. We are in possession of the letter to the Historic District Review Board dated December 7th, 2020. In conjunction with our designer, Stephen Bealey, we have carefully looked at your concerns regarding the Ranchitos neighborhood that we all love so much. We would like to start by introducing ourselves. I am Mark Botwin, the owner of the property at 855A Ranchitos. I have been a resident of Santa Fe since 1990 and am the doctor owner of Botwin Eye Group and Oculus Optical. I have had the experience of building out our location on St. Michael's across from the hospital, as well as remodeling our historic building in downtown Santa Fe on Water Street. Christina Branco has resided in Santa Fe since 1992. She is a real estate broker with Santa Fe Properties and has built 4 houses in Santa Fe. We have raised our kids in this community and are very well entrenched in it. Stephen Bealey is a very well-known, talented, and reputable designer in Santa Fe. We feel very lucky to be working with him. In addition, Stephen lives in the heart of the historic East Side and understands the architectural traditions of the area. It was with great excitement that I purchased the Ranchitos property in 2017. We have been working on house plans over the past year and fully understand and appreciate the responsibility of owning a lot in the historic area of East Side Santa Fe. It has been our intent from the beginning to build a home that coexists well with the historic and newly constructed or remodeled homes in the area. There certainly are a mixture of styles that make the neighborhood so special. Please rest assured that we are in the process of making some adjustments that we feel will make our home a welcome part of the neighborhood, particularly with regards to height and style. Sincerely, Mark Botwin and Christina Branco. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Botwin. And Mr. Billy, you now have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so let me just go through a few notes of the questions and comments that y'all have raised so far, and then I'll delve into my prepared notes. One is that the west elevation is the street elevation, and that's the elevation that is very publicly visible. Right now, as you could sort of see as we were driving down the street just now, there's a coyote fence with a for sale sign. I mean, the for sale sign's long gone, but there's a coyote fence all along the property, but we're taking that down. We're proposing to take that down. And so that west elevation will be very publicly visible, but the other elevations are not. And so I just wanted to make that clear. The south elevation that Angela mentioned is actually mostly embedded into a hill that has a wiggly coyote fence going along the side that will stay. That's the neighbor's coyote fence, and that'll stay. And then there's just a bunch of Siberian elms and all filling in all the gaps. There was a question about that wall in the southeast corner of the house, and Nicole, I think, probably answered the question about that, about how that's counted in terms of heights. But I just wanted to mention that's a privacy wall for my clients. There will be a hot tub right next to that wall, and the neighbors to the south have windows that look out in that direction, but they sit much higher than our lot is. And so we dropped the wall so that they could still see over and see Sangres out that direction, but that they wouldn't see the hot tub. The polygal that you mentioned is, as you mentioned, in between the great room and the east portal, but it's not visible. There's a parapet that runs all the way around it, so you'll only see it from underneath. In terms of the construction, the garage is a frame structure with thicker walls than structure requires, just so that where we do have windows, the windows can be deeply recessed. The house itself is Faswall, and I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but it's an ICF product, or an insulated concrete form product, that is made of recycled wood pallets and then filled with concrete. The wall itself is 12 inches thick, and then you stucco and plaster it, so it becomes 13 or 14 inches thick. And so from my sense, that comes closer to evoking Adobe construction than a lot of the frame houses that I've designed and that we all have seen in town. Because it does give that chance for the windows to be recessed quite a bit. Of course, an Adobe building that's been around for a long time with mud plaster will have eroded and it has very soft edges, but an Adobe building that is built new and stuccoed actually is fairly straight and crisp, depending if that's the way the craftspeople built it. So I just wanted to point out that aspect of the wall construction. The cantilevers, as were mentioned and Angela read the code, there's the rule that says flat roofs shall have not more than 30 inches overhang. And so there are some situations where we're utilizing that rule over the garage door. There's a shallow overhang. Some of the portales in the original submittal have parapets, but some of them have fascia edge, and so they do cantilever out beyond the structure, but no more than 30 inches. They're never more than 30 inches. Okay, and then as far as the question about what's to be seen on the street, I think in your packets, you may have my streetscape photos, which I took of all the houses that are in the district on the street. And so if you're able to look at those, they're there. Okay, so may I share my screen?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Okay. So, like I said, the fact that we had the Zoom glitch actually was helpful to us because it did give us a chance to receive that letter from the northern neighbors and reflect on it a bit and see what we might be able to do with the design to address some of the concerns and still have a house that my clients like. Chair Rios, to answer your question about the neighbor's letter, it addresses issues that I will now address about height, house and lot size, style, views and privacy, the garage and parking. So I'll just walk you through comments about that. And then with regards to height, Angela's already clarified this, but there was some confusion in my original submittal about the height of the proposed design, and that's my fault. I just misinterpreted how we were supposed to be measuring the height. The correct height for the design as originally submitted is 15 feet 2 inches. And our height restriction for this lot is 17'5", so we are 27 inches below the height restriction and are not needing to ask for the variance for a slope site. On this site plan, this will look different than what's in your packet, and that's because we're showing what we're offering as a potential change if this seems to address the neighbors' concerns and any board concerns on similar topics. The dashed lines around this part in the northwest corner show where the garage was in our original submittal. But if we flip the garage to the southwest corner instead, it does several things for us. It moves one of the masses away from the shared property line with the northern neighbor whose property is lower and therefore most affected by our design. It also nestles the garage into the hill, so it's less prominent on the street. And it means that our driveway entrance moves downhill a little bit, and that allows us to drop our floor level a foot. So we've also identified places where we could revise ceiling heights and parapet heights to make the house shorter, because that was one of the main concerns that the neighbors were bringing up. And if you look at this, can y'all read the text that's on this drawing?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So starting with the great room, which is right here, and that's the mast that has the highest story poles out on the site. We have dropped this mast 24 inches from what was originally submitted for this drawing. The media room, which is here, which is another one of the masses that's closest to the northern neighbors, it has dropped 28 inches from what was originally submitted. The pantry over here has dropped 12 inches. The entry has dropped 20 inches. The garage has dropped 16 inches, and instead of sticking out above grade on the north side, it's nestled into the hill in the south. The workbench area out in front of the garage is the mass that's closest to the road, and it's dropped 20 inches and again is nestled into the hill. The storage area that was close to the road has been moved to the south side and is away from the road, but it's been dropped 28 inches and nestled into the hill. And the bedroom wing over here, which was already nestled into the hill, has dropped 9 inches. So this diagram is meant to help us understand the heights. You can see the dark line, that's the slope of the land across the front. This is the street facing view. And the highest dashed line is the height restriction if we were asking and were granted the 4-foot variance for a sloped site, which we definitely have a sloped site, but we're not asking for that variance. Our regular height restriction is this next line down. The darkened area is showing what the house was when we put up the story poles and what we're now saying that we could offer to make the house shorter as viewed from the west side. The north side is the one that's closest to the northern neighbors who wrote the letter. And so I prepared this drawing because it's the one that affects them the most. And again, the shaded areas are where we're dropping the house. The part that's so big and shaded over here is the fact that we're moving the garage away from their property. So there's no building close to the shared property line. And so all in all, the highest mass has dropped 2 feet and the new height of the design is 13'2" or 4'3" below our 17'5" height restriction. This is the floor plan that relates to that design change with the garage flipping to the other side. So in terms of house and lot size, the design we're proposing is just under 2,800 square feet of heated space, and it's 45 square feet of roofed area. Zoning requirements allow for the roof to cover 40% of the lot. Our roof covers just under 35%. The zoning requirement would allow for another 778 square feet of roofed area. But I recognize that we're at historic, not zoning. And so if we want to talk about what the historic ordinance allows or limits, I'm not seeing anything that specifically addresses the neighbor's concern about the house size relative to the lot size, other than perhaps the general talk about appropriateness. So let me address that. The letter states that Mark and Christina's lot is the smallest lot in the neighborhood. Christina's a real estate agent, and so she was able to look up some data for properties that have sold on Camino Ranchitos, Camino Rancheros, and El Caminito. Our lot is 0.32 acres, and there are 6 other properties on those 3 roads that range between 0.3 and 0.35 acres. And if we go a block and a half from Mark and Christina's lot to Abeta, we encounter many lots that are far, far smaller. The letter goes on to state that the proposed house will be the single largest structure in the neighborhood. And the real estate data doesn't show roofed area, but it does show heated square feet. The house that Solterra is currently building just around the corner on the old Gerald Peters property at 829B El Caminito is listed as being somewhere between 3,000 to 4,000 square feet of heated space, whereas again, ours is 2,800. And Scott's project is built on a lot that is the same size as ours and was recently permitted. In fact, 21 out of 27 listings that Christina found on Camino Ranchitos, Camino Rancheros, and El Caminito were for houses with over 3,000 square feet of heated space. The letter also talks about how the house size relative to the lot size is disproportionate to the rest of the neighborhood. Of the 6 properties that I mentioned that range between 0.3 and 0.35 acres, the average house size is 3,107 square feet, where ours is 2,800. Again, these numbers don't account for additional roofed areas for garage and portal areas. They only look at heated area. But all we have to do, again, is walk a block and a half to Abeta to see houses filling lots much more than ours would. Okay, and then let me talk about style, as you've already been talking about it a bit. And the ordinance for this district does give us the 2 style options for describing our designs, old Santa Fe style and recent Santa Fe style. And I chose to put ours in the category of recent. One of the defining features listed for old is that the building is built with adobe or masonry blocks, bricks, or other materials which give the adobe effect. And as I mentioned, we have Facade, which I believe will give the adobe effect. But I classified the house as recent because it has straighter lines than an adobe house, particularly one that has eroded over time. And because on the non-publicly visible side, we have larger areas of glass. Many of the houses on the street are either Pueblo Revival or Territorial. And then there's this delightful house a few doors down from Mark and Christina's lot. And from my point of view, this house is as different from the others on the street as ours is proposed to be, and I like it. I think it's fun. My personal feeling is that a tradition is kept alive when it's allowed to breathe. My preference is for new buildings to reflect their place and their time. So I think it's appropriate to allow the tradition to evolve over time. And we believe that our design ties in with the streetscape through the massing, the brown stucco, the flat roofs, and overhanging portal roofs, and that these are not our attempt to simply rely on minor details, as the letter states, but they are the basic design principles evident in most, if not all, of the houses on the street. Our design also ties in with the greater district with its variety of interpretations of these styles, from the work that John Gamim was doing, himself interpreting the earlier styles of his day, to the more contemporary interpretations that Gabe Brown and Trey Jordan and others have created within the downtown and east side district, along with everything else we see in between and off to the side of that spectrum. This is a photo of a contemporary version of Santa Fe style that's just off of East Alameda on Calle Juanita, opposite Patrick Smith Park. And you can also see the back of this house from Cerro Gordo. Then I'm sure y'all are familiar with Trey's houses on South Armijo Lane because you've approved them over the years. But these are several different houses that are in the downtown and east side districts that all are more contemporary versions of Santa Fe style. And then one that's, its address is Garcia. It's on a street that Google Maps calls Las Placitas. So it may have been hard for the neighbors to have found that because they didn't think it existed, but it does. It's just a strange thing that it's on a street off of Garcia, but it has a Garcia address. And so we're part of a continuum and an evolving style, but we understand that the style may be evolving faster than some would like. And while it can't evolve very much, considering how few empty lots there are and how much the older homes are protected within the ordinance, we are proposing the following changes to address style concerns. This drawing shows the west or street-facing elevation as originally submitted above the version that we are offering today. So we're offering to provide a 3-inch stucco radius on the building corners. We're offering to taper the parapets and provide a 3-inch radius at the top as well. And we have simplified the portal details on the front of the house. The portal is now tucked in between the softened stucco masses on either side. And we plan to carry those portal details around to the non-publicly visible side of the house as well. This is the south elevation, so that one that's nestled into the hill. And you can see the effect of, instead of having the garage out of the ground on this south elevation, it's nestled into the hill. This is the east elevation, which is not publicly visible, but you can see that the portal details that were on the front have now been carried around to the back, which gets rid of one of the higher masses on the back of the house because it doesn't have a parapet there. And then the north side, so this is again the side that's closest to the northern neighbor, and you can see the effect of moving the garage halfway across the lot. There's not a big blank wall right next to their house or their driveway. This is a shot from in front of the property, but just at the uphill corner of the property. And what we're showing here is that, well, with regards to the neighbors' concern about views of the Sangres from the road, it is true that the Sangre view will be blocked when someone stands directly in front of the house, but the road slopes quite a bit. And the photos I submitted, the story poles, show that even if we were to keep the house as tall as originally proposed, we could still see the Sangres over the tops of the house when we are just a bit further up the road. But with the 2-foot drop in the parapet heights that we're proposing, that will make it even easier to still see the Sangres over the top of Mark and Christina's home. And then in terms of the northern neighbors' privacy, with regards to their privacy for their casita and their courtyard, I would like to mention a couple of things. Our windows are placed to enjoy winter views to the Sangres and summer views of the garden in back of the house. They're not placed to look into neighbors' properties. A landscape plan is not a required part of the submittal for historic design review, but I'd be happy to share what we have in the works, if that might help. Now, this is the old floor plan, but it's showing some pinon trees being planted back here that would offer some bit of screening between our backyard and the neighbor's backyard. And I'm sure that Mark and Christina, once construction is underway, they'd be happy to adjust the exact locations of those trees to provide maximum privacy for the neighbors and for themselves, because everybody would appreciate that. But in addition to the trees, we're offering the following changes to address the northern neighbors' privacy concerns. Sorry, let me get back to this one. Again, this is the north elevation. We originally had 3 rooms along the northern side of the property with windows facing north. We now only have 1. So we still have this one in the middle, but we don't have that window and we don't have that window facing north. And the window that's in the middle that is staying is a high window to bring northern light into the middle of the house. And its sill is at 6'7" above the interior floor level. So it's not a privacy concern in either direction. And then the fact that we've dropped the floor level by 1 foot means that the house is shorter, but it also means that it decreases the ability to see over the fence into the neighbor's windows or backyard from Mark and Christina's backyard. Okay, then in regard to the garage and parking that they mentioned, the neighbor's letter includes the garage and off-street parking in a list of what they feel is discordant with the surrounding area. And a minor note, the letter states that the parking area is proposed to have no vegetation or other shielding from the road, but as stated above, the landscape plan is not required, and we are planning to plant around the parking area. And in terms of the garage being on the front of the house, we have within 2 or 3 blocks of our lot, we can see 3 one-car garages facing directly onto El Caminito. And then just around the corner on Garcia Street, not around the corner literally, but you know, in the district, we have this house, which has almost our same condition where there's a garage at the front of the property and it's turned sideways to soften the impact. So we had already taken steps in our original design to soften the impact of the garage by turning it sideways and by placing a narrower mass, the workbench area, adjacent to the street, so the full depth of the garage from side to side is not what is most apparent. And by placing another mass, which is the trash can storage area that faces the back of that area is facing the street. So that shields some of the view of the garage door from passersby. And in terms of the off-street parking, 2 off-street parking spaces are required for new construction. So that was just answering a concern in the neighbor's letter. But in addition to planting the area around the garage and parking area, we are proposing the following changes to address the garage concerns. As I mentioned, flipping the garage to the south side of the lot means it tucks into the hill and is less prominent on the street. And the revised design for a shallower workbench area in front of the garage means that the building sits several feet further from the property line, or about 26 feet from the road, in a district where many of the older houses come right up to the road. And then I'd like to show you this as a SketchUp model, in case this is helpful to get a bit of a sense of the effect of moving the garage and then the softening of the corners and the parapets. So this is the west side. If you're starting to come downhill, this is the front of the house that you'll see first. And then as we move around, as if you're still walking down the street, that's what you'll see as you get further downhill. And so that's what I was talking about. That trash can storage area is there to shield the view of the garage door a bit. The garage is nestled into the hill, and the portal details have been simplified and are not as prominent. They're kind of tucked in between the softened masses. As we go around the north, we see that there is again only that one high window that faces north. And then the portal details from the front carry around to the back, along with the posts. And then going around this side, we see more of that. You can see the light and shadow pattern from the polygal, but you don't see the polygal because it's behind that parapet. And then going around to the south side, I think y'all can see the outline of the county fence that runs along the both sides of the property, really. But that kind of gives you a sense on this south side of the wiggle nature of the property line and the county fence that follows that property line. So we feel our original proposal met the guidelines in the ordinance, and this opinion was supported by the staff recommendation. But we also felt it was appropriate to address the neighbors' concerns in the ways I've identified. And so we asked that the board would approve our design with the changes that we've offered, which are specifically revising the design of the garage, related masses, and the portal along the west or street-facing side of the house, dropping the floor level a foot, lowering the heights for all of the parapets, simplifying the portal details on the west and east sides of the house, rounding the stucco corners on the building, tapering the parapets, and revising the windows in the northern masses. And I realize one last thing, I realize there may be more public comment and there may be more questions from the board, but before I forget, I'd like to just ask one more thing, which is that in light of the delay caused by the Zoom glitch and in light of Mark and Christina's willingness to make so many changes, if the design with the proposed changes is deemed acceptable to the board, we'd like to ask if the board could allow me to submit drawings to Angela for staff review and approval following today's hearing. And these would just be more fleshed out versions of what I've shown today in terms of the plan and elevations and site plan. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that extra time did give you an opportunity to redesign. And I think that the direction that you've taken is a better direction than you probably had, that an easier, perhaps, I don't know, I cannot speak for the board, but perhaps an easier road to approval. And I'm anxious to hear what board members have to say. And I see a lot of hands that are up. So Member Bienvenue. John?
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the redesign. That's, you've done a lot of work on that. And it's appreciated. I just had a couple questions on some of the minor details. The sconces, are they the same as originally proposed?
Yes.
Okay. Had you considered any changes to those?
No. Let me see the best place to, I think on the SketchUp model might be the best place to show those. So there's a sconce right there by the front door, which of course this front door is sort of hidden from view. There will be a freestanding bench right there to more say hello to the street. But then when you get to the front door, then you see the sconce and it's in there, but it's otherwise pretty hard to see. Most of the sconces show up in the back.
Right. Okay, so there's only that one small one next to the front door that's visible from the west elevation.
That's right.
Okay, and then what about the canales? Have you made any changes to them? I think they were metal originally, weren't they?
They are. There's still steel details on the house. We haven't changed that. So the canales are still proposed to be steel, and the fascia of the slight overhang above the garage door and the entry portal, that would still be steel as well. And as Angela mentioned, in a darkened, distressed finish. So you're not seeing raw steel or the welding effect or the markings that come on new steel.
Okay, that was my other question, was the portal. So that's steel and it's held up with what?
The entry portal, let me see if I can show you this. Oh, I can show you this way. The entry portal is held up by the walls around it. So there didn't need to be any posts. It's just on the back of the house that we have some posts that come out to support the east portal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Roybal.
First of all, thank you so very much for the new presentation. Just the original design I thought was excellent. This new design is wonderful. Done a great job with it. Thank you for redoing that. I applaud the Bowens for wanting to please that northern neighbor and make so many changes. So trying to be a good neighbor is wonderful. So again, I applaud him for all the changes it made and rounding the corners. This is a beautiful, beautiful home. Even like I said, it was beautiful before, but now you've just made it so much better. So thank you very much. We should have seen this presentation earlier, and I think it would have saved a lot of time. So wonderful design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Guida.
Thank you, Chair Rios. I agree with the previous comments. I was really impressed with the design before. I had as much, or if not more, impressed with it now. And it's not so much for the rounded corners and for toning it down. I think both responses were really valid on the site. But Stephen, particularly for how eloquently you spoke about the evolving nature of Santa Fe, of recent Santa Fe style, I really appreciate those comments. And to you and to the owners here, you know, I think we talk about design being an iterative process a lot, and it takes a lot of patience, both on the part of the designer and in terms of and the owner, in kind of working through that process. And I think, you know, what's great here is not only the flexibility, but that you also saw opportunities in some of the challenges that were presented, all the way from our, you know, very particular code and strange code that we have in Santa Fe. It's clear that you all did your homework in terms of how to respond to that with the recent Santa Fe style building in both iterations, and then all the way to kind of addressing the neighbors' comments and being willing to be a better neighbor, even if that wasn't absolutely necessary. I think the home now, as it sits lower and does kind of respond more to the site, and in particular, I want to applaud the move around the recessed garage entry. I think that's something that stuck out to me in the first design, and has only gotten better in this one. So I think this is really terrific. In terms of what we're seeing tonight, I know there are probably some gaps between, you know, obviously what's in the packet and what's been shown here in the revised presentation. But given the level of you know, of an animated rendered model of the kind of walkthrough that we've had and around the building, I would be willing to approve this revised design, as Stephen suggested, and just recommend that final drawings be submitted to staff for final approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guida. Member Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just really impressed with the creativity that our community has and so many of the architects in Santa Fe have in approaching, again, these kind of strict guidelines. But I think this has been done really creatively, really thoughtfully. And I also commend the applicant and the architect on such a thorough and thoughtful presentation that really took to heart other community input. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Larson. Member Katz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to thank the architect, the designer, for doing just a beautiful job on the redesign, for listening to the neighbors, and for making it such a nice rendering that we could actually see what it looks like. I mean, that's the trouble we have, and I really appreciate that. And I think, you know, it shows, it works. It allows us to see the beauty of the house. And looking at it now from this thing, yeah, it doesn't stand out to me as a modernist house. There's that whole argument, and I hear Member Guida talking all the time, and Mr. Billy also kind of sort of updating it to the modern time, and that's a discussion that needs to happen. there are houses that could be designed in, sort of updated versions of an Adobe house that would fit well, wouldn't clash with the East Side design and such, but don't look like an Adobe structure. And I don't know what the city council wants to do. The ordinance as it's written says it's supposed to kind of look like an Adobe house, not look like a modern version of an Adobe house maybe. But that's a problem. But you have removed this project from that issue, and I thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Gee, I don't think I called for public comment, and I guess I will go to that. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? We have Mindy Bailey. Would you swear in Mindy Bailey, please?
Yes.
Actually, it's
Hi, it's Paul Berlowitz, Mindy Bailey's husband.
Oh, okay.
But it's Mindy Bailey's iPad.
yes. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Paul Berlowitz, and I live at 853 Camino Ranchitos.
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you. So first off, I'd like to say that we greatly appreciate the changes in the design. I think if I had one recommendation to give the owners and the architect, it would have been to reverse the garage, which is what they did. There was the main effect, which is that it removes half the mass from the wall of our house. And the secondary effect is that as you had designed it, your garage would do nothing but accumulate road dust all day long. This way it will not. So I'm sure in the long term, you'll appreciate that. We submitted in our presentation a number of photos that showed how the house blocked various views. I can make the assumption that that blockage will be less now. It is difficult for us to judge it because as far as we can tell, the poles have not changed. I think if the board members who did spend the time to read our response, looked at those photos, they would have seen the extent to which windows and views from various points around the neighborhood were blocked. I would also like to emphasize that though we were the authors we received input from all the neighbors and we decided amongst ourselves to put one more coherent proposal in rather than have half a dozen different submissions. So look, from my point of view, the original design, I would have agreed with the board members who found the design too modern. That was our opinion. That was the opinion of the people who live in the neighborhood. I think the current design is much better and much more acceptable. We appreciate lowering the height and we appreciate the work that was done to ameliorate the privacy concerns and the view blockage concerns. As I said, it is hard for us to make some sort of final judgment because the only thing we can judge by is the poles that are put up. But there's no doubt that the changes made, we appreciate them and we think that they are a very large improvement. We would have objected strongly, as all of our neighbors did, to the design as submitted, even if it nominally fell within the letter of the law, so to speak. But I think this is much closer to the spirit of what belongs in the neighborhood.
And we are at just over the 2-minute point, just to let you know.
Okay, if you can finish up your comments.
Sorry. So, I mean, there may be other neighbors on, but that's what I have to say. We find it a much better design. It's hard to make final judgments, but it's clearly an improvement from our point of view.
Thank you. Stephanie Beninato.
Stephanie Beninato, PO Box 1601, Santa Fe 87504. When I saw the original design, I thought that perhaps it technically met the requirements of the code, but it didn't have the spirit of the code. I think that this revision really does incorporate the spirit of the code and that it you can, it's modern, but it fits in with actual Santa Fe style. And I appreciate that the building material is massive in itself. I also am more than appreciative of both the architect and the owner's willingness to look at the comments made by the neighbors as a challenge to try to address, rather than as something to sort of try to block out and ignore. And I think that the changes they made made their design much better overall. And I think that they went more than out of their way to address the neighbors' privacy and view concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. John Eddy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. It's unfortunate that so much time was spent talking about the original first design, because I found that design to be very inhospitable to the neighborhood, and I'm glad that it has gone away. Very glad. It was completely unharmonious with the neighborhood as it had been originally designed. Having said that, they've made great improvements in bringing this into some kind of harmony with Santa Fe style. I think the most important thing to come out of this discussion has been the remarks of Board Member Bienvenu, who I think hit the nail right on the head, in that we are dealing with a semantic trap here when we use the word recent Santa Fe style to reflect what we know in our current new millennium viewpoint of architecture in Santa Fe. It does not relate to that viewpoint. It relates to an earlier time in Santa Fe style as it was adapting, where the conditions and the statements made in Pueblo Revival architecture were being brought forward and morphed a little bit more with a little bit of modernization. A contemporary design such as what was proposed in the beginning has nothing to do with Santa Fe style as far as I am concerned. That's my own personal opinion. So having said that, I appreciate what they've done. I do still object to seeing visible steel used on the elevations where they are publicly visible, such as the canales and the fascias over the garage and the entryway. I have a pretty strong opinion about that. I think it's inappropriate to use steel that way. I also think the window apertures are a little bit out of proportion to the wall massing, but that, obviously that has to do with the interior use of the room. I don't want to belabor any more beyond that, but thank you for working on this so diligently, and I appreciate the care that you folks have brought to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for all your comments. I want to thank the Santa Fe community that is always involved. Not only are these board members very involved in every solitary project, and you can tell by all their comments and the interest that they take in every detail of the projects that come before this board. So we have a very good board, and I also want to thank the people that are involved, the neighbors, and the people such as John Eddy and Stephanie Beninato, who come here all the time to our board meetings, whether in person or virtually, as we have tonight, seen them, and make their comments known. And I do want to thank the Botwins, and I want to thank the architect for working together and making this project, in my humble opinion, much better. When I see all of these rounded corners, they are just so much more inviting and something that you want to embrace and maybe go touch, really. I hope that this rendering that we have up on the screen, I hope that that will be true to form, that those corners will really be very rounded, and that that there will be nice recesses. And yeah, thank you, everybody. And let's see if we have a motion here. I see Mr. Katz has his hand up. Frank?
Yeah, I just had left it up. I will let someone else make a motion.
Okay. Motion, please. After all the discussion, please jump in and make a motion. Member Benvenue.
Actually, I was just going to ask a final question.
Absolutely, you have. You can.
Circling back to the steel, are you willing to consider making changes to the steel detailing on the canales and the portal and the garage?
I'd like to say no, that that was an important part of the design aesthetic that we would like to keep. We feel like the masses of the home are really the prominent thing that you experience as you're walking down the street, and softening those, but then allowing the portal to say, okay, we're also in 2021 here. That felt like a good balance to us. And so I would like to keep the steel canales and the steel fascias on there, as we've seen on other houses in the district.
In reference to that, I would like to say this, even though that I live in a house that portions of it are from the 1930s, designed by Frank Applegate. And some of the canales they're metal. They're metal canales. I love them. And I notice our neighbor also has those very canales. They are not steel, but you know, steel, metal, that's why I would go ahead with wouldn't have a huge objection to the steel. Because I see the metal canales, and not our entire house has the metal canales, but the older portion does. And I relish those on that. And I see our neighbors have those same type of canales. So maybe this is kind of in that avenue of, even though this is steel and mine is metal or tin or metal, I guess it is. It's a obviously thinner material, but I would go ahead and go with what this applicant is proposing. Did you have anything further, Member Benvenue?
No, thank you.
Member Beachside.
Thank you. Sorry, not to prolong this, but I just hadn't commented, and I just wanted to offer a few comments and thank the applicant for what is very clearly a sincere effort to address your neighbors' concerns. And thank you for patiently explaining them all to us in such a thorough presentation. I find the garage treatment to be a particularly bright spot that is always a jarring aspect of new construction in a district that doesn't traditionally have garages. And the fact that you thought to sort of hide it with the garbage enclosure is super creative. I think the best we normally see is a really nice wood door. So thank you so much for providing another option that you know maybe will be replicated in other designs. I think it's a beautiful house, but I think it really takes a talented creative architect and a willing and open-minded client. So, you know, thanks so much for a really nice effort here.
Thank you. Just for legal purposes, I have to say I'm a designer, not an architect, but I appreciate all your comments. I just
love me.
Thank you. Member Guida.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so in case 2020 002 854 HDRB 855A Camino Ranchitos, I will move that the board approve the revised design that we saw in tonight's presentation by the applicant and has been recorded on YouTube and in the notes of the proceedings. And highlight the changes that were made in that revised design, which are here on screen, relocating the garage and related masses, and revising the portal along the street-facing side of the house, dropping the floor level of the house, lowering the heights of all of the parapets 2 feet or more, simplifying the portal details on the west and east sides of the house, rounding the stucco corners of the building, tapering the parapets and revising the windows in the northern masses. I move, my motion includes that the applicant will produce a set of drawings that captures all of this and submits that to staff for final approval.
Thank you, Mr. Guida. Is there a second? Member Roybal?
Madam Chairman, I would like to go ahead and second that motion that was just made. And again, congratulate the applicants and all the wonderful work that they did. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Rios, can I insert one thing about the motion that was just made?
Yes.
There was just one comment that Member Guida mentioned of that dropping all the parapets 2 feet or more, and that's not what we've done. We've dropped them 2 feet and 28 inches in a lot of places, but the bedroom wing is 9 inches and the pantry is 12. So it's all that first drawing that I was showing in terms of those heights. So it's all in the drawings that are recorded, but I just want to clarify that they're not all dropping 2 feet or more. Overall, the house is dropping 2 feet.
I'm sorry. No, I think that's important. We'll just say, instead of saying 24 inches or more, we'll just say reducing the height of the building per the presentation.
Right. The height of the building was reduced by 2 feet, but different sections. Okay, just reducing the height. That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
Member Roybal?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you very much and good luck on your project.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. We have the last case this evening, which is Daniel's case. And that's located at 601 San Antonio Street. That's case 2020-002809. And this is a contributing building. And Daniel, can we hear your report, please?
Yes, hello, just a moment.
And Daniel, I brought over Taylor Purdue. Is that the
Yes.
appropriate applicant? Anyone else you're aware of?
I'm not sure if the owner is there.
I don't think so.
Can
Not as far as I can tell.
Okay.
We can always bring over more when we get there.
Okay. 601 San Antonio Street is a single family residential structure with contributing status to the downtown and east side historic district. The west side, that's the side shown in this photograph, has been designated primary by the HDRB. This is not visible from the street, but this is the main front facade and primary facade of the building. It is built in a territorial style. It has rectangular form, deep inset windows with concrete sills, exposed V ends and canales, a flat roof with parapets, and brick coping. This is the location. You can see San Antonio dead ends here. And this is a new private drive, a private road, which provides the main access to the house. But as such, the house is actually not publicly visible. Here is the site plan with the primary facade on the west in red. Here's the east elevation on the rear of the building, so to speak, simple territorial massing with the deep inset windows and brick coping. Corner. And the southeast, this is the south elevation. So details. So most of the windows are historic, and details as to their condition have been provided in the assessment, which is attached to the packet. So now the applicant proposes the following exterior alterations. Number one, item one, construct 2 small portals on the west and east elevations to protect the entry doors. Remember that this is a primary elevation and currently without any portal. The The portals will be constructed on slabs with a masonry finish. To construct the portal on the west facade, that's this, the applicant requests an exception to section 14-5.2 D2C to construct on a primary facade. The reason is very straightforward, which is that without any protection, the rain goes straight into the house. And so this provides protection from the elements for the inhabitants and to preserve the building itself. This is an example of the kind of aesthetic that they seek to reproduce. This is on, is it Palace, East Palace? And this is the proposed light fixture. Item 2, widen the 30-inch door on the east facade to 36 inches from 30 inches. Item 3, repair historic windows on all facades and add storm windows. This does not require an exception, as the windows on the primary facade will not be replaced, but restored. Window jambs will be added that enable the seasonal removal of screens and storm windows. New screen doors will replace the 2 existing ones, which are non-historic. Item 4, raise the parapet height from 1 foot, raise the height 1 foot to a maximum of 12 foot, 6 inches above finished grade. The maximum allowable height is 14 feet, 2 inches. 10 inches, excuse me. The existing brick coping will be repaired. Also repair roof and beams, possibly raise the roof and beams about 8 inches, should it be necessary structurally to install a bond beam. Item 5, here view is from the southwest. To remove a concrete basement access stairwell, which is located here at the moment, to the south of the structure, and construct a freestanding shade structure in that location. Here's the main house, and south of the main house. This will be 12 by 10 feet, constructed to a height of about 10 feet, and will be constructed of square wood posts with a dark brown natural wood stain and wood vigas, and a parapet with brick coping and stucco in the style of the house. Item 6, construct stucco yard walls to the maximum allowable height of 6 feet on the east, west, and south, and a wooden gate on the west side, and a coyote fence on the east with a color to match the adobe will be color match the house, which is a colonial white, El Rey colonial white. That's this color. And that's it. So staff recommends approval of the proposed project and finds that the application complies with section 14-5.2 D and E. And staff recommends that the exception criteria for the construction on the primary facade 5.2 D2C have been met. I stand for questions.
Thank you. Daniel, does the wall meet the fence and wall guidelines?
I believe that it does. I would have to go through them, but the idea is that it is articulated.
Is there a variation in the wall height after, I think it's 25 feet?
Well, I would have to go through that. I haven't got it off the top of my head.
Sally, excuse me for interrupting you, but Sally, can you, you have the wall and fence guidelines handy?
Not that handy.
I
I'm
can
not
pull
on
them.
my regular work computer. They may be in my email, but I would have to search.
Or maybe Nicole does?
Yeah,
No.
I can look. Give me 1 second.
We
and
can, they can look that up, and I'll see if other board members have questions. Member Beachside?
Thank you. Yeah, I have just a couple of questions, Daniel. The first one is with respect to item 2, widen the 30-inch door on the east facade. Is that actually the west facade?
No, there's a, if you go back to look at the photos, you'll see that this is the east facade.
Okay.
The west facade has likewise a narrow opening, but in order to avoid an additional exception, the applicant opted to retain the 30-inch door on the west side and widen it on the east side.
Okay, I think their letter says that the west side, maybe that's
Maybe there is a mistake, but that is what they're applying for.
or maybe that's been changed. Okay. And then the second question is, what is the reason for raising the parapet?
It's to accommodate structural elements to strengthen the roof and accommodates a little bit more slope, I believe, for water runoff.
So are they doing a new roof?
I believe they're doing, yes, they're doing a re-roof.
And is there brick coping at the top there that's going to be retained and reapplied?
It will be, yes, it needs repair. So it will be repaired where needed.
So it'll just be sort of cut and then placed again on top. Is that the idea?
Yes, I would ask the applicant for more technical details on that point.
Okay, and then the last question is about the roof plan on the last page of the submittal, page 32 of our packet. I'm just a little confused. It appears, I'm sure I'm reading it wrong, but it looks like an addition. Is that the pergola or why? I'm just comparing the proposed roof plan to the existing roof plan.
I'm afraid I don't have it in front of me. There's no addition except for the small portal.
Mm-hmm.
And there is then this freestanding shade structure on the south elevation.
I can share. So I have the wall and fence guidelines, but I could also share. I missed the page though. If you wanted me to pull up the roof plan.
Okay, well let this issue that they are talking about right now be answered thoroughly.
Yeah, if you want to look at the roof plan, I could pull that page. I just missed the page number.
It's page 32 of our packet, the last page.
I've got it as 42.
42. Yeah, that might be more.
Yeah, it's 42.
That may be the site plan, not the roof plan. I don't have a roof plan.
Great.
No, that's a site plan. And
oh, you know what? Sorry, never mind. That's my mistake. It's my mistake. I'm fine. Just ignore me. Thank you.
You're good. You're done with your questions for right now?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, and now I'll go to the fence and fence, wall and fence guidelines, Sally.
Okay. Oh, and where the? Oh, yeah.
I have them pulled up too.
And Nicole, Sally, Nicole has them.
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure she can
show it.
share. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do we have here?
Member Benvenue directed me to them, so here we are.
They just happen to be in the packet for the Alto Street.
I know that's
Oh,
great.
okay.
I was
So they
just
were in
new
there,
to
good.
them, but that was a faster find.
So they should not extend for more than 50 feet in a single horizontal plane without a plane change.
Well, I interpret these posts, the pilasters that are certainly at intervals of less than 50 feet as breaking up the plane. Maybe Nicole could advise on the interpretation of that point.
I would agree that has been it has been interpreted that way, that the little height of the pilaster provides a breakup in the plane.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Member Guida.
Thank you. Just two questions, Daniel. Two questions and a comment. The storm windows that are proposed would be exterior storm windows. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the raising of the parapet would be all the way around the building, including the primary facade.
Yes.
And I guess the last thing is this pergola publicly visible?
No, nothing is publicly visible on this property.
Okay.
It is a private, located on a private street.
Is it at the very end of
Yes, I can show you again on my share screen.
yeah, it's at the very end of San Antonio?
Yes, San Antonio dead ends here.
Yeah.
And then there's a height difference of about 6 feet and greenery. And the house is located here. There is very minimal, if any, visibility here. And this is a private street. And the pergola would be located here.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Rita?
It would be to the east of the house, not to the south.
Oh, sorry, then it would
Yeah.
be, no,
Okay.
oh, no, I don't think so. The stairway, there's an external stairway that's here.
You are correct. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's right. To the south. Okay.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Member Benvenu?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the public visibility issue, there is, there's a walkway that goes along the north side of the property. I think it's the old acequia. Maybe it's an arroyo now, I don't know, but it's used for public traversing to get from one street to another. Does anyone know whether that's a public right of way?
I don't know.
Are you aware of what I'm talking about? It runs the entire length of the north side, and every property along its length has fences that allow this looks like an easement
You're saying
for people.
You're at the end of San Antonio here?
Exactly. Yeah, it crosses San Antonio and goes all the way to Ranchitos, probably one of those streets.
The little trail is that?
Yeah, it's a trail, and
Yeah.
I think it seems to be public. It seems to be a public right of way, but I don't know if it is or not.
It would count as a public right of way, as far as I am aware. And then even Las Placitas, with it being a private drive, I think that there's still, and Sally could speak to this, some interpretation of how many houses are on a drive, whether or not that makes it private, and whether or not it's gated and those types of things. But I'll defer to Sally on that.
Okay. I mean, and to me, it doesn't matter. I don't think for the ultimate determination in my mind of the issues here, but I do think there is public visibility. And also still on the same question I asked before about the fence height and the wall height, how do we know that 6 feet, can you tell me again how you calculate that 6 feet is the maximum allowable height for both the coyote fence and the wall?
I can speak to that. So Gary Mokino, who is the inspector for historic, usually goes out and does the calculation. And it's outlined in 14-5.2 D9, where there's discussions of height, how many feet on the streetscape from basically the center line of the property, and that's 600 feet. So 600 feet in either direction from the center line of the property is the wall heights are measured at the highest and lowest points. And then they're averaged for the streetscape average.
Okay.
And that's done on both sides of the street. And then if you have corners or truncated areas, it's a little bit more complicated, but.
Okay, because the walls and fence here will have a fairly large impact on this property in terms of its visibility and closing in the entire lot that's now visible from every possible direction. I'm just making a remark. I don't think it necessarily makes a difference in the long run.
I think we would need clarification from Sally. My understanding is that it is on a private drive and therefore has no public visibility, except for possibly a very small amount from San Antonio.
I don't think we have a formal interpretation. exactly of public visibility, and I know it's something we've discussed, that the land use director could issue a written formal interpretation of public visibility. At this time, we really don't have one, so I'm not able to make like a definitive explanation. I have seen private drives treated a little bit differently depending on the circumstances by various planners and managers, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought that public visibility was judged by a public way. If you're in a private area and there's no public visibility, then we have
But in Santa Fe, we actually have a lot of roads that we haven't accepted as city streets that are still technically private roads, but are still to the same standards and built to the street standards that we would apply to what would normally be a public road. And so that might be closer to the kind of nuance that Nicole was speaking to, like a lot access driveway is 8 houses or less, and those are often, they don't have to be paved, they can be much smaller, they have a much more private feel. So I do think there would be some benefit to maybe sort of spelling out some things like that more formally, but at this time we don't have that.
Okay.
So the assumption on this case is, that the walls are sufficiently distant from the public right of way that they are allowed to go to the 6-foot maximum.
It's if they're 20 feet or more back from the streetscape. So the wall height is intended to preserve streetscape. And so once it's back 20 feet or more, or if it's a side yard or a backyard along the back of a property, 6 feet, which is the zoning regulation height, is allowed. So if you imagine like a parking area where you're driving in and parking vehicles, and that's a 20-foot depth there, and they put a wall at the back of that, that's allowed to be 6 feet. Because 20 feet is away from the streetscape technically, or that's how it's always been interpreted. And that's in a different section of code that isn't specified in the H code, and I'd have to look it up, but it's 14-5. 14-5.8, I believe.
Well, not to belabor the point, but I do think that, San Antonio dead ends into this house. And certainly that's publicly visible from there. And that's where the coyote fence is going to be, I think, along that north side of the property boundary.
Okay. And Daniel, that coyote fence is going to be at 6 feet?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Member Katz, did you have something? You're muted.
I was just reflecting on what would be publicly visible. And I think when you have a road like this road that has, I don't know how many houses, but a lot of houses on it, it means that the public goes there, and that, everybody has 3 dozen friends who come and visit. And so it ends up being very publicly visible. But I agree with John Bienvenu that I don't think it's an issue here, because I think what's proposed is just fine.
Okay, thank you. Member Beachside?
Thank you. I guess maybe 2 things on the wall issue. I think we have. I'm thinking of the house on Don Gaspar that had a very large setback from the street, and they were proposing a wall, more than 20 feet back from the street, but it did affect their contributing facade, and I think, in that case we actually argued that it did affect the streetscape, even though it wasn't closer than 20 feet, but that's just a comment. But I have a question about the south and north facades and the raising of the parapet. On the drawings, so there's some exposed vigas on both of those facades, and I don't see I mean, the drawings make it appear as if the windows are getting closer to those exposed vigas rather than the parapet growing above those. And I'm actually just sort of interested in what effect the raised parapet has on the placement of those, you know, the appearance of the placement of those vigas.
Good.
I think those are pretty character defining, and having a, you know, a large parapet above them, I think looks different than what we're seeing in the drawings.
I did have a conversation, and I'm sorry I don't remember the exact details. I'd like you to direct the question to the applicant. It has to do with the way that the building needs to be repaired. They're not exactly able to determine the extent of the decay, so that, you know, certain structural elements may need to be installed. But the intention is certainly to retain the appearance as much as possible. I can't remember exactly now the order of stacking of elements and whether or not those beams will be altered in their position.
That question can be posed to the applicant. And talking about, are you done, Member Bichette?
Yes, thank you.
And talking about the applicant, why don't we swear the applicant in?
Okay. Do you swear?
Okay, go ahead.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Taylor Pardue, 905 Nicole Place, Santa Fe, 87505.
Thank you. Mr. Pardue, what do you have to tell us about this project?
Well, actually, let me start off by saying I don't know if this is an error or not, but it was my understanding that this is actually a non-contributing structure. According to the historic survey, it's listed as non-contributing, and I saw on the agenda tonight that it was posted as a contributing. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm understanding it correctly, first off.
Daniel, let me get you involved here. Is it contributing or non-contributing?
It's a contributing building. That's why it has a primary facade.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you look at the New Mexico Historic Building Survey or Building Inventory from '92, it's actually checked off as non-contributing.
Yes, it was designated contributing within the last 5 years.
I want to, yeah. There's some distinctions to be made too between the National Register Historic District, which the HCPI form often addresses, and the local jurisdiction. And so under the local jurisdiction, the house does contribute to the downtown and east side.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. And I think that's the way we've been handling it for the design process anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Parker.
Sure. Well, I mean, first off, I just want to thank Daniel. You know, originally the owners were hoping to actually do a full window replacement of everything. And I think after meeting with Daniel, the first round of the primary or preliminary site visit, he actually made a pretty convincing argument to us to, you know, retain the windows. And I think I just want to express some gratitude towards him, because I think it's the right decision to, you know, keep with the existing context of the neighborhood and try to retain these windows in their state that they are. They are a little damaged, and there is some repair that needs to happen. But I think the owner really agrees with Daniel as well that, you know, maintaining the existing character of the house and keeping the windows wood is the right decision. So we're not changing any window openings. We're not changing the style of the windows. We're keeping everything as is. The only thing that we're doing would be adding like an additional wood layer, I guess, just to accommodate a storm window for the winter and a screen in the summer. So anyway, that's it for the windows.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just I'll try to address all these things that I was just taking notes on. I guess the first one that came up was just the brick coping on the top of the parapets. I mean, it is in pretty bad shape. It almost looks as though someone has kind of stacked them up temporarily. So there is a lot of repair work that needs to be done to the coping detail and the bricks. We're a little unsure at this point what needs to be done because there is some settling of the house. And I think that there was talk about adding insulation to the ceiling because it's under insulated right now. And so that was part of why we wanted to raise the parapet somewhat. But also I think it would strengthen up the parapets and the coping details so that we could actually improve the overall look and bring it back up to how it probably was originally built. What else? There were a couple other questions.
One was about the Viga.
Yeah, the Viga ends. This was another kind of question that we didn't exactly know how to address without really getting into the structure of the building. The thought was that right now the Viga ends are pretty rotted out, and there's some sort of mortar or concrete mix that has been applied over the ends of them just as a repair. And it's our understanding that we could bring these back kind of more towards their original shape and condition by actually drilling into the ends of the Vigas and then applying kind of a faux Viga end. So that was one possibility. But, you know, I think that we're looking for some latitude with how we approach this as we get into rebuilding the structure and, you know, addressing the parapets, the coping, the Viga ends all at the same time. But, you know, our hope is to really maintain this human scale to the house because it's really just a simple box. It's, you know, 29 by 35 feet. So there's you know, it's a very simple structure. So we just want to keep it as simple as possible and still add a few little small details that will help the new owners.
Okay. Let me see, Mr. Perdue, if members have questions for you. Board members, did Mr. Perdue answer all your questions, or do you have further questions or comments? It appears that you might have answered all the questions. No one has a hand up. Let me go to public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to comment? We have Stephanie Benenato.
Good evening. I would, of course, say yes to the exception for the little portal for the door on the primary facade and for widening the door on the east side, since you do need a 36-inch door for access. I also appreciate that they are using the old windows and repairing them and using storm windows, as much of a pain in the butt as storm windows really are. But I do appreciate that they're maintaining those windows. For me, the two things are the shade structure or pergola. It looks like it's at least 10 feet away from the house. I really like a clarification on that. Because I think when they get too close, you might as well think of them as a portal, and then they get too big. I do think it will be, if the wall isn't there, it would be visible from that little street that goes down and serves all those houses. And I do think that Nicole and Frank are right, that it's about how many houses are on there, because it does tell you how much traffic that street gets, not whether it's really public or private in terms of its designation. And I do think that having a 6-foot fence or wall will obscure the primary facade. And I just wonder if there could be some lowering of that, maybe to 4 feet, so that you could still appreciate that facade. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eddy.
Madam Chair, you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I had to break away for a minute to get a bite to eat, so I missed a lot of the discussion of the design, but I wanted to contribute a little bit of information because I was prompted by board member Bienvenue's observations, which I'm very often struck by at these meetings, and I really appreciate his perception. What you described as a pathway, or what might have been an acequia in the environment of this house, is in fact, I believe, an acequia that was abandoned many years ago and was turned into basically a vernacular pathway. I used to use that pathway to get to Acequia Modern School when I was a kid. I would imagine that Chairperson Rios might have been familiar with it, but I don't think she was allowed to stray that far from her house in those years.
I knew my dad well. True. I went to Acequia Mother School, but it was Acequia Mother right to the school and back home.
You probably didn't take that pathway because it was dangerous.
You're exactly right.
But the other thing I wanted to mention to the applicant, the vigas can very definitely be retailed. It's not brain surgery, and I'm not looking for work, but I'd be glad to consult with you if you want to learn how to do it. It's a pretty interesting process, and I think you'll be really happy with it in the end. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
John, don't go away.
Yes.
Give us a little, I mean, I know everybody's wanting to, this is the last case on the agenda and we're almost done, but quickly tell us what you're talking about in terms of the vigas. You keep the same viga, you put a new viga, what do you do?
You cut, out of a new viga, you cut enough length to reattach it to the original viga after you've excavated through the wall into solid viga. You may have encountered here on this house structural plaster holding the viga up because the rest of the viga is so thoroughly rotten. But it's still possible. You can even extend that tailing of the new viga and cantilever it inside the house to pick up the old viga if the old viga is that bad. But it's a wonderful technique, and we've been using it for years. And I really love to see people putting vigas back on buildings, because what happens is they rot off and they cover them up with concrete, and there you've lost a vernacular detail that's really important to Santa Fe style.
Thank you for your lesson this evening. And let me see if anybody else has any other questions for the applicant.
Henderson House, I remember.
Board members. Yes, I see Member Larson.
Thanks. Yeah, just another extension of the Viga discussion. So what's really smart about Vigas is that they're supposed to absorb some of those elements, and what can be done is, yeah, you just replace the tail. So I talked to Cornerstone's Community Partnerships. They have kind of come up with a really good system with using borates as well to help curtail any moisture damage that could occur within the viga. So it's definitely doable, and it'll not only protect the structural soundness of the entire viga, but it again will just be that extra detail. And I also just wanted to say that this is a really interesting building, interesting lot, and I think it's a good project. So thanks.
Thank you for that information, Member Larson. Member Bienvenue.
I was going to make a motion unless you wanted to have further discussion.
Okay, let me see if Member Beachside had a question, or was she into a motion?
No, I just have another comment before someone makes a motion. I think the details of this house are really important. It's a simple house, of course, but between the vigas and the brick coping and then the simple, square style, the original windows, I think we need to be very clear in the motion that the viga ends should be repaired and retained, that the brick coping should be saved and reapplied. In the photographs I see, it looks like a really nice detail, like a dental detailing of the brick coping. I know that can, similarly be, cut and reapplied if they're raising the parapet. And I think we should consider the 6-foot wall, which will really hide this little gem of a house. And I mean, I know there's an argument about the private drive, but if it is a private drive, I'm not clear what the need is for a 6-foot wall. And I wonder if there would be some possibility of a shorter wall. Like, even a foot or two would make a big difference.
I'm going to ask Mr. Pardue to comment in reference to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the wall actually is 6 feet at the on the west side at the entry gate. But I don't know if you saw an elevation in the packet. It actually tapers up to a lower, like 4-foot height at the top of the drive, which is that private driveway at the on the south side of the property. So the idea was not to enclose the whole property. We wanted to, still keep it somewhat open. So I think with the 4-foot height at the top of the wall or the top of the property, the south side of the property, it does kind of vary. That wall height does vary enough. So I just wanted to point that out.
And Mr. Pardue, is that the portion that is 4 feet? Is that the portion is that the most visible?
It is actually, yeah. I mean, the 6-foot section is right next to the parking area. So the owners wanted more privacy from the parking that's essentially 10 feet from their bedroom window.
And do you know the length of the 4-foot portion?
I don't know it offhand. I'm sorry.
Daniel, do you?
Be in the packet if maybe we can see.
Let's see if I have it.
Should be elevation drawings in the
Page 41.
I just closed it on accident instead of opening it, but I can get there in a sec.
It's really the entire length of the southern boundary line, property line.
So it's at 4 feet for many feet. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, right, but there are breaks in it. I mean, similar to the other elevations, there are the pilasters that break up that, the wall. So, yeah, there you go. So you can see at the east or the west elevation from the gate, it kind of tapers up to the top of the property, which is the south side along the road. And as you're looking at the south elevation, you would be walking along that or driving your car along that wall. And, that's at 4-foot height.
It doesn't look like 4 feet. Okay.
So that's
my concern is more about the effect on the house, which, is behind a 5-foot 6-inch wall in the west elevation.
Right. I think the concern was just their bedroom window is the window on the left hand of that west elevation, and there's parking right next to it. So it was to give some amount of privacy.
I just want to reiterate that as far as I was aware in terms of the proximity to public rights of way, this is in conformance with the code requirements.
Let's see what Member Benvenue has to say.
I actually thought Member Beachside's comments were very well taken, and if she would, I'd actually prefer for her to make the motion if she's prepared to make one.
Member Guida, did you have anything further, or were you going to make a motion?
I was just going to say that in terms of the exception criteria for the porch addition on a primary facade, I'm totally fine with that. I believe they've been met. I appreciate the discussion from the board about the Viga ends and all that. I think I also appreciate the unknowns in the project. And I think that the 1 foot height increase in the parapet, understanding that of course that the applicant will be restoring the viga ends and the brick coping per the drawings. I think that's wise. I don't think it adversely affects the proportions of the building in any way. I think it's a good fudge factor and a conservative one to work this out.
Thank you.
I don't have the issue with the wall. I see it as a necessity in terms of creating a private yard.
Okay. Member Beachside, did you want to make a motion?
Sure. In case 2020-002809 HDRB at 601 San Antonio Street, I move to approve the application as submitted with the following conditions. That the viga ends on the north and south facades be repaired with, what's the right word?
Retain.
New tails so that they more closely match the original extensions, and that the brick coping on all facades be replaced after raising the parapet. And as you know, to the extent possible, I believe it's possible to cut that and reapply it. We've seen it done in other projects. So I don't want to be unreasonable with that condition, but if there's a way to emphasize that that is a character defining feature of this house, that every effort should be made to retain that intact, you know, even if it's a sort of a messy vernacular job of coping.
Can I just ask for the clarification of the language? Replace often refers to new material. You mean, I think, retain original historic material.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. And go ahead.
I think that's it.
You need to indicate whether the exceptions have been made.
Sorry, thank you. There was one more thing. Yes, that the exception criteria have been met to construct a portal on the primary elevation.
And were you going to say anything about wall height or not?
You know, it would be preferable to have a shorter wall, but I understand it's not a violation of the code. So I'm not going to address that.
Is there a second to this motion?
Guido will second.
And roll call vote, please.
Member Beachside?
Yes.
Member Bienvenue?
Yes.
Member Guida?
Yes.
Vice Chair Katz?
Yes.
Member Larson?
Yes.
Member Roybal?
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Pardue, and good luck on the project. And Daniel, also thank you for, as Mr. Pardue pointed out, that you really made your case in reference to keeping those historic windows. Thanks, Daniel. Anything under discussion items, staff?
No, nothing for discussion.
Nothing, thank you. And any matters from the board? They're anxious to go home.
I actually had one question. I did not, I don't think I ever saw the comments from neighbors with respect to the Ranchitos house. Did I miss that, or were they not provided?
They're posted on PrimeGov. Sorry, Nicole.
Nope, that's fine.
So we are, for all committees, including this one now, the process is for folks to submit those on PrimeGov. And if they submit them to staff is uploading them to PrimeGov. And so I could do a quick show and tell for 2 seconds if that would be helpful for how.
No, I just want to make sure I hadn't missed something. Are we supposed to check PrimeGov then before these meetings to see if there are comments?
Yeah, and I think Lanny actually alerted you to these, but it was like a month ago. But do check PrimeGov. When you go in and you click on the agenda item, it'll show the attachments, and it's going to have the PDF that's the staff report, any public comments or other attachments that have been submitted.
Yeah,
So
it's
they
really
will-
kind of neat.
They will be there. It's going to be a really good system. But I apologize that you missed them on this round and for the transition.
It's all right. It's fine, no problem. I just wanted to know what to do next time to make sure I do see them.
And if you
Okay.
need help figuring out how to find that stuff, staff is happy to help.
Yeah, definitely. Call staff or text
Call
them,
me.
mail them, whatever. They're very helpful. Also, you know that now, starting now in 2021, then we're not going to have paper copies delivered to us. Everything's going to be, you know, people, we're trying to save paper. And so everything is going to be on this new system. So we're all responsible to logging on to that and reading everything that we have, that we need for our board meetings. Is that clear? And if you have an
Yes,
issue
ma'am.
with anything, just call the city, they'll help you. So our next meeting is on January the 12th, our regular meeting, the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now adjourned. And as usual, I really want to thank all of you because you always do your homework. Your volunteer members, and I'm so proud of you because you really delve into every solitary project. Each one of you, you might have a different point of view and you express that point of view and you're strong in your point of view. You look at the law, you want to see what those answers are so that you can make the right decision in every case. And I really, really thank you. I was almost going to quit the board, but because of all of you, I guess I was. And Nicole, and it's nice to have you two here. Nicole, you're very capable. And
Thank you. I
even though
appreciate
you're
that.
way over there in California, you're doing a good job, young lady. And you know, I really can't say enough for each one of you. Miss Sally over there, she does a great job. And when she represents us in those appeal cases, she's on the ball. She gets her work done. She's thorough. And glad to have all of you here, including you two attorneys there. John Benvenue. I like that the way your legal mind works. You want to make sure that we're going according to the law. And then we have, you know, Anthony, you're out in left field a little bit. No, just kidding, Anthony. Mr. Contemporary. Just teasing.
Just Mr. Evolution.
Yeah, no, all of you, you're just, I much appreciate it. I just can't tell you enough. Melissa, thank you for all your good work, and we'll see you all next time, guys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your,
Happy New Year.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
thank you for your leadership, Madam Chair.
Okay. No